Hello, dear friends. It's Carly at Moon Mirror Tarot here with a brand new reading. Whenever you are finding this, this is your message of empowerment that you are ready to hear right here, right now. And I have a brand new format. I literally made it up as I went along, whatever felt right to me, and it came together so beautifully. I have 4 piles here, and each pile has some energy that exists on the surface of the message and what wants to come through on the surface level. And then there's a part underneath that is wanting to come through, like from the unconscious. There's an empowerment message from a part of yourself that you're not really seeing right now, that really no one is seeing right now. And that part on the surface is more who you know yourself to be already and what everyone else is experiencing your energy to be. And so as you step more fully into your power, who is that version of you who holds their power more fully? And this reading is designed with love from Spirit, from Mother Moon, full of love for you making that transformation and reclaiming whatever parts of yourself it is that are part of what is being integrated to create the more empowered version of yourself. So as you can see, pile number 1 and pile number 2, their main cards are revealed. They have a very specific message, a very on the surface message, and how I interpret that is that these are almost certainly a synchronicity for someone out there, as far as you already have been hearing, listen, you already have been getting the message, let go, let go, let go, or maybe surrender, whatever form that message is coming in. And so these two, again, very surface level, very specific messages that want to be seen by someone in that confirmation kind of fashion. So the interesting thing about that is that these next two, they don't have their main cards on the surface. It's a mystery. It's a mystery that we're going to get to solve together and get to unpack and unravel. Why would you be receiving a hidden message of empowerment? And I don't take that lightly. The fact that these are unseen, this main message that is trying to come to you that you haven't seen yet. And gosh, like I put myself in that situation where I absolutely have things that are held outside my consciousness, and then they kind of work their way in once I'm ready to hold them. So there absolutely feels like there's something in here that is very timed and very intentional for certain individuals to receive these messages. So if you're drawn to kind of whichever one is jumping out at you. Also, we have these first 2 piles coming out of the Tarot of Curious Creatures, and then these second 2 piles are coming out of the Tarot of the Light Seers, both by Chris Ann. Love these decks. I love all of these decks that I've played with today. Again, I very much like put it together and it feels like medicine. So whichever of these doses of medicine is calling out to you, there are timestamps in the description. And if there are more than one pile calling out to you, like I'm not going to tell you which ones feel like a coherent storyline to me, because who the hell knows which ones could be combined into the coherent storyline. Probably any mixture of all of them, because that's the beautiful thing about us, is that we're all on a unique soul's evolutionary journey of our own empowerment, and that looks different for every individual. So no matter which pile you choose, know that you have the personal freedom, the personal autonomy and authority to pick and choose the messages that feel resonant and helpful and soothing and like they light the way for you. And if there's anything that feels like something other than that, that feels, like this doesn't land in a way that I'm ready for at this time, by all means check a different pile or possibly click out of the reading altogether. These messages in what I've felt through them so far feel extremely specific. So if your message doesn't resonate, that's okay. Come back or come to a different reading. Find one that does feel good in your system. Hello, pile number 1. Welcome to your reading. You have chosen the card Listen. And really, I want to see if I can get as close up on that as I can so you can really appreciate the detail and the beauty of these cards. All the decks that I used are listed in the description, by the way. So this beautiful card of Listen is your main message. So everything else that we unpack in service to your message of empowerment is going to centralize around this concept of listening. And what comes to me right off the bat on listening is how receptive it is and how much strength it really does take. And I want to say right off the bat that if you're someone who has historically thought of yourself as a bad listener, quote unquote, like what does that really mean? Like there are things that we're meant to tune into and there are things that we're not meant to tune into. And right now I take this card as there's absolutely something that you are meant to tune into. And by that, I'm getting that it's twofold. It's like a two-factor authentication. If you're familiar with those, like they're everywhere these days. Yeah, like it's like a two-factor experience where I'm not exactly sure which one is coming first, and I'm guessing that's because it'll be different for each individual listening to this. But there's like a combo platter happening here where there's an intuitive piece that is coming from inside of you. So there's like an inner listening of, what is it that is your intuition or your conscience or your deeper knowing? Like, what is it saying to you? And there's also an outer piece, an outer listening that I'm hearing is coming from your personal enjoyment. You seeking pleasure in your experience will lead you to the right people or places or podcasts or TV shows or friendships or work situations. Like you following your pleasure will guide you towards what is the outer things that you should be listening to and that you should be tuning into. It's your pleasure that will illuminate those things that absolutely, like anything that feels pleasurable to you, and I'm getting like a very sexy vibe when I say that. Anything like that's kind of the technology of love. It's like if it moves you, if it attracts you, like you feel like there's a magnetic pull happening in certain parts of your body, like that is something to be listened to and to follow. Like what is that guiding you towards? What is that pointing you towards? Because everything inside of us, all layers of our intelligence, are communicating with us at all times. So yeah, that's really the main message that comes through there. And these next oracle messages, and I'm going to take our tarot cards and set them to the side for a moment. So the rest of the oracle messages, again, some of them are on the surface and are very clear surface level messages of empowerment, which tells me you've already heard these, and it's like this is the double confirmation piece. This is like your inner knowing has already told you that this is important, or that you can kind of feel something inside of you is guiding you towards this important thing. And then here's this double confirmation. Here's the outer listening piece that, you tuned into a reading like this probably because it feels good to be, held in this space. and that has led you to something that you were supposed to tune into, and that this is that double confirmation piece saying it's time to embrace these ideas. And I am very much resonating with whoever has been getting this message of change and Uranus. Again, I'm going to try to get as close as I can so you can really appreciate how beautiful and rich, especially like this depiction of Uranus in the middle is so beautiful. And this geometry, or whatever this is that I'm noticing here, that's like, it's like coming up and going around this way and then coming up here and then like going around this way. So like very like continuous. And that's really what I'm getting, is that like change is inevitable, and that listening in this way that I'm describing is going to tune you in to some things that you want to change in your life. And that is kind of the message of empowerment that this listen card is bringing you. It's like, you know, once you become aware of what it is that you want and desire, it's really hard to go back. That seed has planted, and good luck digging out the roots of your desire. You know, like, listen to it. It's not going away. And it's pointing at things, like your body's desires are pointing at things that you are absolutely meant to tune into. You know, we're all in this together, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're meant to spend your time listening to every single little thing. But that, again, it's very clear that your pleasure is what's guiding you to what it is that you are meant and in harmony with listening to. And that as you become aware, that is going to create ripple effects of things that you want to change, and that you have the power to do that. That's really the bottom line, is that this is your life. You're the CEO of your life experience. And what happens on your watch in your life, there's a lot that's outside of our control, and that really is a lot more about how we respond to it versus how we react to it. But at the same time, when we listen to our body especially, we can find patterns within ourselves where we're denying what it is that we desire. We're denying what it is that's real and authentic and in pulse with our life force. Oh, never said that before. That, yeah, like there's a real pulse of individuality through us. Uranus also representing individuality. And listening to that, following your own pleasure, listening inside of yourself for what does feel good for you, what does feel right and harmonious for you, and then where does that lead you in the world, and then listening to and absorbing from wherever that guides you to be. That is a reinforcing pattern of empowerment that is unlocking in your life. Dude, congratulations. That's so exciting. Okay, so these, oh boy, these are your oracle messages that are under the surface. These are the ones that have not revealed themselves to you yet, but they're about to. And I'm hoping, obviously I don't know either, I haven't seen them yet either. I'm hoping that this is kind of a practical guide to, like, specifically what is it that is wanting to wiggle its way into your awareness, and what is it that is part of what is shifting within you to, again, like reclaim that most empowered version of yourself. So that's what I'm hoping these cards are going to answer, and obviously we'll get to see. And I'm just going to check. So all 4 of your tarot cards are part of the further explanation of this unconscious or below the surface part that's wanting to come through. So we'll pull those out as it feels time. I'm seeing that we're going to kind of do that kind of interspersed. Let's put those there, actually. Oh, I'm liking this. Oh, yeah, that felt like a message all by itself. Was like the plan is nothing but a direction, and part of the listening is the going with the flow, the freedom to move like the moon and the earth, and the cycle of nature is to move, to be in constant movement. And so, as you have a plan, there are endless opportunities to release the plan, and that every breath is a change of, well, now I'm right here, and what does right here yield to me? Like that has really not a lot to do with the plan. The plan and the direction is maybe what got you aligned into that moment, but what you're receiving, the plan was just the impetus, was just the invitation. The actual experience of receiving what's waiting for you in the moment is something that is completely different. So maybe there's also some enticements about what you are going to be receiving in the moment. I'm so excited. Let's see what these are. Okay, so along with listen, let's look at your Moonology card here. Oh, and it's in reverse. I'm not going to take that lightly. That's interesting. A win-win outcome is forecast. Full moon in Libra. And let me see if I can get you. I'm not sure if you can really see the pretty purple lavender shades that all of this are, but it's really beautiful. And the scales. But it was in the reverse, and so I'm going to leave it like that. And I'll be honest, the first thing that came into my mind when I saw, what it was, the full moon in Libra, and that is this balance, and then a win-win outcome is forecast. The upside down version that created itself spontaneously in my head is that a lose-lose outcome is forecast if you continue to ignore these messages that are wanting to come through, that are yielding these changes that I feel like maybe there's a little bit of resistance. I want to empower you. I am not calling you out at all. There's an awareness around breathing into what is it that makes these messages hard to hear. I don't take that lightly at all. And part of our journey of empowerment is to, I use the word wiggle a lot because that's really your best bet, is to wiggle and relax and wiggle and relax and wiggle and relax and wiggle and relax. And like, you're like an inchworm on your soul's evolutionary journey. And that's what we're doing. And so, what this is, it feels kind of like a caution, like a yield sign, and like really think about, who's winning when in the short term moment, you kind of cave or yield to the situation and let somebody else's momentum overpower yours. And like there's a kind of the shadow of peacekeeping where like really there's not peace and we're really not okay with this, but on the surface let's just kind of like wallpaper over things and like have peace. And that is a surefire way in the long run to create a lose-lose situation. I don't mean to like step into your reading, but like I've had so many friendships end because of this, of like the short term just acquiescence to the other, and in the long term the situation became so toxic for me personally because I couldn't be my authentic self there. And so it's like the question that's coming through is what are the spaces in your world that feel stifling to you, that feel like your authentic self is not allowed to be present in that space? Maybe some journaling around that. Again, part of like what we're listening to, what we're listening for, is essentially, where are we denying ourselves? Where are we ignoring ourselves and not listening? Let's see what else we have. Lilith. Oh my goodness. The first woman, I am the voice of my body and soul. I choose the life that I desire to live. Does that not go along so well with, oh, such beauty, with exactly what we were talking about with desire? You having what you desire is what is in the best interest of the highest good of the all. Your desire is not wrong. Your desire does not make you bad. And if you've cut yourself off from your desire, that doesn't make you bad. If that's the part I'm getting, like, this is the how, this is the what of, what are we trying to listen to? And again, just like we said, like what you're listening for, or what you're listening to, for and to, out in the world, in the outer, is what lights your fire. And again, that's a sexy vibe question. What turns you on? What gets your energy going? What gets your blood flowing to your body, to your entire body? What lights you up? And that will guide you. The pleasure of your body will guide you to exactly what you're meant to tune into in the outer world. And what your pleasure guides you to hear in the outer world is always, like, when you're really in harmony with your pleasure, when you're really in harmony with your inner desire, the primal carnal desire of your animal nature, but just like no inhibitions. What do you want? What is it that you want? When you're really in touch with that, what that leads you to is a confirmation of the love that comes through your intuition. What your inner knowing is telling you is good for you and right for you. And so, like, you think about that, like, again, the balance that comes with getting to hear these confirmations in the outer, it begins by being, one, listening to our own intuition and being in harmony with our inner, our desire. And that I'm definitely getting the sense that for a lot of us, I put myself in that category, for a lot of us, our desire is what's coming online that we have not really been hearing. And again, that's okay. It is all happening in divine timing. But that ultimately part of your message of empowerment is that you are entitled to your desire. You're entitled to the pleasure of your body. And that it is actually one of the most potent and powerful guides that you will ever have in this life, are the messages that your body is giving to you all day long. It's like turn by turn directions of a GPS all day, every day. Your body knows the answer, like the listening, like this is such an inner listening. Also, like that is ultimately where we are connected to source energy or God or the universe or however you want to label it, that our connection comes through inside of us. So, like, by connecting inside of ourselves, we're also able then to listen and hear what our higher self, our spiritual self, our whole self, our full being, what it's saying to us. And it has that bird's eye view, like there's a bird here, like that higher perspective of not just what feels good in the short term, but like in the long term, what is going to create that win-win situation? What is going to bring that energy upright and into balance and creating the win-win scenario is if you are one of the winners. Let's have a look-see at one of our crystal and medicine cards. So we have Candle Quartz and Bleeding Heart. Show yourself. Vulnerability, self-worth, and feminine healing. And that's right next to Lilith. It's also coming off of the change. And again, I am very much with you. I'm with you in spirit as a recipient of this message. Okay? So we're all in this together. This show yourself, this, like this light coming out of Lilith, like this unlock your desire, like let it be. Let there be a fire inside of us. Like I'm also hearing very, very clearly that like there's really nothing, like you don't have to put the fire inside of you, that like if you don't blow it out, let me expand on that. If you don't blow it out by factoring other people's opinions and thoughts into what you're doing, that's one way to blow out your inner flame that's naturally present within you. And if you don't dump water on it, like fear and other really murky emotions can kind of drown our inner flame. And so I'm hearing very clearly, cultivate a space, a sacred space where there's no, like there's only a light breeze allowed through there, and that's your own personal opinion of your right now self, which is always evolving, right? Like who we know ourselves to be evolves basically every day, I'd guess. And so there's a light breeze through your inner fire of like kind of observing the world lightly and being in the world with everything allows this light breeze that continues to stoke that inner fire, and that's a beautiful thing. It's when we allow the world in full force that wind will like blow out and make our inner fire so hard to keep its strength in the middle of that stark wind. And then also in that space that, cultivate this sacred space for your fire that sets, I was going to say set fear aside, but like fear's not going away, and it's not bad. It's not wrong to be afraid. It's helpful information to have. And sometimes you can kind of like outvote your fear. There's more of you at the table that wants to go ahead and do the thing that is scaring you, and the fear is still there saying, this could happen, and what about this, and well, that would lead to this, and then what about this thing, and like it's got all the scenarios to try to get you to stay where you are. And if the fear has convinced the rest of you that, this is the most likely outcome, then that's one thing, and you stay right where you are, because there's real danger in the world, and our fear is our best ally for keeping ourselves safe in this life from the actual dangers that are present. So often though, we're fantasizing about danger. We're having a danger fantasy in our mind, and that's a very different thing. So that's very much where I'm kind of distinguishing, like, vulnerability is something to use when it comes to the danger fantasy. That inner space of exploration is a place to bring our vulnerability and to allow ourselves to explore the meaning of what it is that we're experiencing inside of ourselves. So like when it says show yourself, like I personally am a very incremental revealer about myself. And, that's not necessarily like malicious or deceptive. It's more a reflection of how deep the ocean really is. And that I'm getting very much the same thing from your energy. It's like, show yourself. That's a lifelong endeavor that, may or may not ever come to an end. That's not a light switch where, like, okay, now I'm showing myself and, like, done deal. Like, no, it's more a way of walking in the world. And what I'm hearing is that, especially when we're feeling brand new at something and feeling the vulnerability of the fear of being a beginner and not knowing, having the unknown of what's going to happen next when I make this change. I don't know. That's why most people hate change, because you have to go through the birth canal of not knowing what's on the other side. But that there's always a space for you inside of your own self where you can practice showing yourself to yourself. And that only when you feel that you have the strength to take that show on the road and show somebody else, then do that, like express however it is that you're guided to express. But when full self-expression feels like something that exists on like a far off distant mountaintop, there's always you and you that will forever be the practicing ground for every relationship that you have in the world. So if it feels really scary to reveal and show yourself to others, practice doing that just within yourself and spending time looking yourself at those parts of yourself and see if you have a similar experience to what I do. When I do that, it is very empowering because you basically realize, or I do almost every time, that it's definitely not as scary as I thought it was. Wait, this thing isn't scary. And when I really explore the meaning, I think that's pretty much unlikely to happen, and that, like, I don't even know if I agree that it means that. And like, you start to really see through the illusion of the things that are keeping you where you are. And so these changes that are coming, again, it is unfolding through your path of pleasure and fun and play and arousal through this life. And maybe that helps us be less afraid. Maybe, I'm sure it's different for every person. Let's see what our other one of these is. So apophyllite and LMI, maybe I'm saying that correctly. Chances are, I'm going to give it 60%. Yeah, 60% good that I'm saying that correctly. I know I can say these ones though. Cleanse, that's an interesting word. Lifestyle choices, detox, and nourishment. And again, let's take that through the lens then of this listening and cleanse your listening. Like, are you spending time listening to outside sources that do not feel pleasurable to you? And like a rowdy child in the background, while I was saying that whole thing, there's another one, the exact opposite, that also wants to come through that says, are there inner sources of tapes of conditioning, loops of conditioning inside of yourself, little stories and worries and the same patterns of dynamics between you and other people that play out over and over again? Those stories they're playing inside of you, and are there stories that you're listening to that, again, you're not being guided there because it's pleasurable? So like, it's not about being bad or good, that I personally don't even necessarily believe that exists. And especially if we're here with Lilith, that to me is kind of like the deepest, most sensual, most like tangible in the pleasure of what it is to be human, what the body is capable of, that like, there is what is. And the full spectrum of life itself is actually what's delicious. That, good and bad is a very difficult concept to prove into fact. It's often boiled down into an opinion, which is entirely subjective. And so, cleanse our listening, our lifestyle choices, detox, and nourishment. So that, yeah, like possibly there's some influence, whether, that could be like a YouTuber that you've always really loved listening to. And well, let me even, make that even more positive, because this is not necessarily negative. Like detoxing something could be like a teacher, let's say a YouTuber that you've been listening to for, years, like 3 years, let's say, and they have brought you so much comfort and enjoyment and relaxation and ability to feel good inside of yourself, and like so grateful to everything that you've been able to absorb through what you've listened to from them. And let's say that, you're being guided to make a change and being guided to stop listening to them and, find something else to listen to. You're like, but I like this. And you do, right? Like it feels good. But the part that is like really wanting to come through, this is so exciting for us, is like the nourishment piece and the pleasure is guiding this process piece, and like kind of using that to, combat, if we can say that, the fear of this change process, is that like your pleasure is the one requesting the change, and you're like, but I like it, so I want to stay here. It's like, but what if what you're going to find on the other side of that change, and the other side of like removing this influence so that there is no influence, and then here comes a new teacher that is able to provide you with even richer pleasure, even richer experience in your life? Are you really telling me you're not curious about like what that could be? Because I'm pretty curious. I'm now like on the lookout for like, okay, so what is it? What is it that is being communicated to me through my body? I want to hear that. So if you're feeling that, definitely don't forget to like this video and comment down below. I would love to hear like how all of this is coming into your system, how much of this, listening to the outer is confirming what you already know to be true in your inner. Let's see what your last oracle message is. Autumn, a time for letting go, lighten your load. I feel like, again, like this is like right here with this cleanse and detox, like there's absolutely something that part of the change is releasing something that has been in your life that has probably even been really good for you. I'm hearing like that has been really good for your self-empowerment, has really added a ton of confidence to that journey for you. And that, even the most beautiful trees, they leaf out all summer long, and they're so gorgeous and they're so green and plushy and blowing in the breeze. Oh, I still love it so much. And then that season has come to an end, and it's time for that transition to take place, and that those leaves, they die and they get released, and we go into a period of dormancy. We do the thing where we let go of one influence, and now we're sitting here with no influence. That's a perfect time to really listen to the inner, right? And that possibly in that timing of, letting go of one influence and experimenting or searching for, what's next, what's the next layer of pleasure that's wanting to come into your life, that there is a period of time where there isn't really anything in the outer that's lining up and aligning that feels really good for you, and that is a beautiful time to listen to the inner. and see what it's saying. And again, get really clear on what is coming through your inner listening, because that outer is only ever going to reflect it back to you. So, yeah, I think that's really good. So let's see what your tarot messages have to add to this. So I also actually back up, because I just got a thing with like both of these arms are something else. And again, we've been seeing this whole time that there's like this two-factor energy coming through here, this inner and the outer, this self and the other, this, yeah, like just two. I almost like I'm getting really strong Gemini energy, also Libra, obviously with the scales, the balance. So you may have heavy placements in those areas where really the highest frequency of air energy is listening. And so possibly this is a confirmation for some of you to like, this is your leveling up, this is your empowerment of your air energy itself, that like air energy specifically is empowered through listening, through absorbing the data and the information and the different viewpoints and the different angles and the different knowledge and the history and the visions of the future, and like all of these different pieces get absorbed. And then what rises, what floats to the top of the pile is significant for you. And it's more and more and more potent the more you've listened. So if that feels like a confirmation for some of you. So yeah, these two arms, it's like listen to your body, listen to your pleasure and your desire. And very much, again, I'm seeing like reveal yourself, show yourself. Some of this is like a kind of, again, a little bit of a maybe 18 plus message, but like a sexy message, but like there's someone coming through here to say like they want to see you show yourself. They want to see you reveal yourself. They want to see you open up and receive more of what's already there for you. And so yeah, there's this very primal body piece, and then there's also this like outer piece of, I see there's influences out and around you in this other position, right? Since we have Libra coming through here, that are meant to be cleansed and detoxed and released, because there's something even better for you wanting to emerge and come online, and that feels like great. Let's see what these are. So we have the Devil. Oh my God, I cannot believe that. Because if there was any one card that I would associate with Lilith, it would be the Devil. It's like, I personally don't believe that the devil, like as Christianity would cast him, I don't believe that creature necessarily exists. I think humans have a part of themselves that is so primal, that is so animalistic, that is so uninhibited and out of control with desire, with pure feeling. I think that essence, which is very feminine, by the way, very like uninhibited in your sexuality, in your expression, in your ownership of your body, in your ownership of your voice and your mind, that there's like a desire to control that very uncontrollable, very unpredictable essence that is flowing through the heart of every single one of us. I don't care how you identify like as your gender, like we all have this raw, primal, want what we want energy that we have not been listening to. Like that's really the message, that like these were all under the surface messages that like this is the part that hello, come face to face with it. There's a reason we've been keeping it on ice, and a lot of that has to do, I think, with like the taboos around these things in society, and like what's appropriate and acceptable. And again, I think the takeaway so far is that you don't have to be vulnerable and revealing in places that don't feel safe. And to begin with, your core safe space is always inside of yourself, and that's always a place to come back to, inside of yourself. as you go through, like wiggling your way like the little earthworm, inchworm, as we go along our evolution. So the devil is that part of us that tempts us towards things that aren't good for us, but that we want them. We want them. And there's a part of our body, there's a part of our primal self that does not care that it's bad for us. Like, what even is that? What even is good and bad? Does that really exist? Or is it something that can be controlled, aka good, or something that's out of control, aka bad? And primal raw sexuality is absolutely out of control. That's at its highest form. It is pure motion. There's no control, there's just being, there's just pure expression. And that level of uncontrollability absolutely goes against the grain, like a cheese grater against the grain of society. So there's good reason why these things are repressed and hidden within ourselves. There's so many messages in our upbringing and in culture, no matter where you grew up, that it's not safe to be that uncontrollable version of yourself, that you need to behave yourself like a good girl or boy or whatever that is, and that they basically train us to repress this primal life force energy, and listening to it, opening back up to it, is something that, that's not easy work. And yet that's the crossroads that this reading has brought you to, is facing these things. And oh my gosh, wow. Talk about owning yourself. We have the King of Pentacles. The King of Pentacles, Pentacles being the suit. I also think it's interesting, both of these creatures have horns. And it's almost like, oh, interesting. Okay, so the devil's horns, if you can see those, they're like just little. And then the King of Pentacles horns are like these big, grown out, beautiful things that it's like, yeah, if you take those little sparks of inappropriate pleasure, those desires that you hunger for, and you start really exploring that in the physical, even just within yourself, even just within looking at it within yourself, that those little horns of the devil will actually grow into these really beautiful, fully formed, unique essence of your physical form. And that actually, yes, that is the King of Pentacles. That's what being a master of the physical realm is all about, is embracing the natural essence of what is. And that includes our sexuality. And that here I see massive abundance, massive wealth coming to you as a result of embracing your sexuality. That, like, as those floodgates open, you will also see money pouring in on you, like freaking dropping from the skies, bundles of fortune into your lap, and it will mimic the waves of pleasure and outflow of sexual energy that you are unlocking simultaneously. So congratulations on your life at this point. I'm very excited for you. Let's see what other guidance we have here on this, like this outer period. And the first card is this Four of Cups. Four of Cups. And very clearly, like, the first thing that I'm seeing is, one, like how bare this side of the card is, and like she's looking over here, or the figure is looking over here, and there's these three cups stacked up. There's technically things in the space. There are these three cups in the space, but the rest of it is pretty empty. And then you look at this side, and it's like there's only one cup, but it's red and it's glowing. And there's these glasses and this paw of someone who's holding it up to us, and this life, this foliage growing on this side of the card, and yet we're not looking over there. And what wants to come through here is like what we were talking about with like letting go of one influence from your life and like being able to have the space then to welcome in a new one, is that new one is right there. It's like it's almost a no waiting period at all of this reality basically already exists in your life, and there's simply the turning point choice of believing that you are worthy of this next level of pleasure and passion and your primal desire, whatever that may look like. So it is very much really already not just like rooted into your life, but also already growing up and putting off leaves and like a real reality, like a physical in the real reality for you at this time. That's coming through very strongly. The other message is the Fool 2.0. 2.0! I've been seeing 2.0 everywhere, everywhere. My dad came back from this trip. This just came in like, and he was telling this guy, he was so excited. It's one of the most excited I've ever seen my dad. It was so cute. And he was talking about Donnie 2.0, this guy that he met, and how Donnie like had hip surgery, so he had to sit there for a few months, and he became Donnie 2.0. And so, yeah, like this period of letting go of what is in the right now, what's here, what might feel safe, what not, might even feel good. You know, like it's not like it doesn't feel bad. It's not like it's abusing you or like it did anything wrong or it's hurting you. Like maybe it feels good, but you're still reaching for more. Listen to that. There's absolutely something that has already built its way up in your reality that's ready for you to do the thing where you just have to dive in. Right? Like we have the free will. We have the power and the divine responsibility of choice. And so what will you choose to listen to? Will you choose to listen to the outer that is, you know, I'm telling you, like this upside down thing, this like this warning of there's a lose-lose situation coming here if we don't, you know, cleanse and detox and really think about who are we listening to? What is the effect on our body? What does our body feel like when we listen to them? Because if they're not lighting you up with pleasure and joy and satisfaction and contentment and fulfillment, then you can do better. You deserve better. This has been your message of empowerment. Dear friend, it has been my honor and my privilege to receive this exact message alongside you. So thank you for allowing me to read to you. It has been read to you, for you, all of the above. It has been my pleasure. It has truly been my pleasure to spend this time with you. Again, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you're into stuff like this. There's obviously going to be more coming, and whatever comes through, whatever feels pleasurable, I'll be following that little path right there. I do hope that you'll take such good care of yourselves, and so will I. Hello, pile number 2, and welcome to your message of empowerment that you are ready to hear at this time. Congratulations on all, all of the work that you have done that's brought you to this point. I can't tell you how beautiful it is. So good. You have chosen the Let Go card as your main card. Oh, there's a little tractor driving by, don't mind that. The Let Go card, and it's in the face up position, so we do know what it is. And so how I'm interpreting that through this reading is that the fact that we can see this already, some of the cards are upright, and those are the ones apologies, pile number 2. Those are the ones that are possibly already floating in your conscious awareness. And if they're not, if the upright or the face up pieces don't resonate, as far as like, I really haven't been hearing that message or seeing those signs, then possibly this isn't the pile that you're meant to hear today. So, just keep that in mind. And if things aren't resonating, no worries. Check a different pile or another reading altogether, right? We want you to follow your pleasure. That is like king of the kings, is your pleasure in this life. And anything that is not that, you deserve better. So let go of anything that, is struggle for struggle's sake. So we have another one of your cards here in the face up position, and that is the third house. So we have two birds. There's a little bird and there's a little bird, and they're talking to each other, and that's really what the third house is about, is communication. And it can also be your local neighborhood, it can also be your siblings, it can also be sibling like friends, which is to say close friends that you see on a regular basis. It could be anybody that you're communicating with on a regular basis. So communication. And when you really think about communication, when you unpack that, sending messages back and forth and actually communicating, which is to say having your information from inside of you land in another person. Like, that is when communication has taken place. Otherwise, like, if you've just said something, that's self-expression, right? So like, we're not talking about self-expression. If we were doing that, we'd be in the fifth house of passion and play and creativity, and we're just here expressing ourselves, right? That's fifth house. But this is the third house, where the goal is not necessarily self-expression, although that can definitely inform your communication. The goal with the third house is to communicate, is to have information from inside of yourself now exist inside of another person, or vice versa. So that act is incredibly complex. Like, when you really start looking at the third house and communication in general, and like how to get information to exist inside another person, like, that is a big task that since it's face up, I'm going to read that as like, that there's something, there's like a resonance, there's a bell ringing, as far as like, there is something that exists inside of you. There's information, even if it's deep down in your soul and you don't even know what it is, like, you can feel it wiggling and wanting to come out. You're like, it's in there. You know that there's something inside of you that you want to chirp, chirp, chirp it to the world so that other people can know it too. Communication. So this one is one of the face down ones, so we'll get to that in a moment. This is one of our face up ones, and this is your sacred feminine, the power of your sacred feminine speaking to you through this card with Enhedwana. That's really fun to say if you want to try it with me. Enhedwana, Enhedwana. I'm going to give myself a 95% chance that I'm saying that correctly, so, let me know. But she is the high priestess, and it says, I am one with my soul, and my soul is a legacy of love. I am one with my soul, and my soul is a legacy of love. And you maybe can see it, but this is like a scroll of some kind. So it said in the book, as I was reading about her card, it said that she existed like 4,000 years ago, and she is known as the first female poet. She also wrote several hymns and prayers, and her work, these things that she wrote, influenced the culture and religions specifically for thousands of years, and how those works are constructed. She said like she's like responsible for creating the structure of poetry. Like, her creativity that flowed into the world. Like, I mean, saying that she's a trendsetter is like she's a genre creator, you know, like the first female poet, like like coming up with a new way of doing things and having that like create a path for other artists to walk behind her. So like it wasn't just, oh, she wrote a thing. No, the way she did what she did, it changed countless lives. Long, I mean, thousands of years after she died. Do you resonate? I mean, these are the upright cards that, I mean, the reading says that this stuff exists in your consciousness. That like you know that you have something inside of you that wants to be communicated to the world, that it's changing the way we do things, and for the better, for the 1,000,000% better, and breaking barriers. Like the other, you know, she's the first female poet, like breaking barriers that before that, it's like, no, men are poets. Like when you would say, oh, this is a poet, like you would just know that that's a man because women can't be poets. And like then here she is breaking those barriers and going beyond anything that the world has seen before. Do you feel that in your consciousness? I would expect that you do. And if you do, great. This is your reading, because this is where we're going to get into the rest of your cards, because the rest of them are face down. And we are going to just take this one step at a time. And explore these face down portions, which, as I described at the beginning of the reading, if you missed it, no worries at all. These face down cards are the ones that are not yet in your consciousness, or these are brand new pieces to add into the mixture of what it is that you're already doing. So you already have been hearing let go. You know you have this like vitally important mission to communicate your message during this lifetime. And like you're getting all of that, but it's like, how? How do I do it? What do you want from me? What am I supposed to be doing? You know, what am I here to say? Like, so all of that is what I hope is what's coming into the light, right? Like it's the next pieces of the path. It's the next steps on the path of guiding yourself forward to ultimately be able to leave something behind that will touch countless lives for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So to like state the importance of what it is that you're here to create is like not possible with words. So I'm hoping my emotion in my voice is getting the job done for me, and my very dramatic hand motions. So like that is right, like it's coming in conjunction with let go. And you're like, but it's too important. I couldn't possibly. And it's like, yes. Yes, you could possibly. And so here's where I have to tell you, and this is my own little experience of letting go. Little side note. So I recorded this reading already, and I got 30 minutes into it, and then I heard a ding on my computer, and a little message popped up that said load disk space. And when I clicked stop on the recorder, it was like, no, you didn't have enough disk space to save that reading. So 30 minutes worth of going through this reading, I already had all the cards turned over. So I've seen what's under here. And then that reading was non-existent. And there's the hit of like, damn it, like you take 3 steps forward and then you got to take 3 steps backwards, and like, okay, like do it again. But already I can tell you like this one right here is so much better than the one I recorded the first time. And like, you guys deserve that. You deserve to get like the clearest transmission of your message that I am possibly capable of. And when a transmission comes through that it's like, it's possible for it to be better than that, to be able to let go is an act of love, is an act of service to, watch my computer like randomly eat one of my recordings and like it doesn't exist anymore. So like, good try, but if you want that to exist, you're gonna have to start over at the very beginning. And so let go. Let go of that first one, because like, dude, like they say, there's no use crying over spilled milk. And so the let go message of these three pieces is, letting go of something that feels unlet goable. Like, it feels so important that you communicate your message. And so I've seen what's under here, and I'm so excited to reveal it to you, although I am going to take it in a very different direction. And the one that wants to come out first is this one, because you're not going to believe it. This was the last card that I turned over last time, and I just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But check it out. Stories. Yeah, stories. I leave you the memory of healing tales. I leave you the memory of healing tales. Stories. Communication. Poetry. Hymns, prayers. Uplifting people. Implanting is a funny word apparently. Implanting them with information that improves the quality of their life. This is you. This is who you've already known yourself to be. And there are stories from your journey so far that are already ready to be told. It's just a little tractor driving by outside, so we're gonna power through. Yeah, like, and that's different. That's an upgrade in the message than what came through last time. Is that you have stories right here, right now that you are ready to tell. And this noise out here out my window is this like confirmation of like, raise your voice, get loud, tell your story proudly. That God, I cannot tell you how different this reading is than the first one. It's amazing. That you can get such a different reading off of the same cards. I absolutely love it. And that's why you have to tell your story, because nobody else can. Nobody else can tell the story of you. They don't know. They don't know what you've been through, and you do. So putting your experience into story is something that, this is one of those face down cards. And so possibly telling your story is a newer concept where it's like, who would want to listen to that? Or my story's not that interesting, or, like whatever kind of thoughts might come along with the idea of like telling your story. But I don't like, there is no such thing as a boring healing journey. Like, it's just not, it's like an oxymoron. Like, it just doesn't exist. So like, every healing story is interesting. And so the part that is coming through here is like, okay, so, I'm going to tell the story of my healing journey, but like, I don't know what that is, or I'm, like, I still am in pain, or I feel like I have so much more healing to do. And that's where the let go comes into it, because it's like a let go of the timing. Let go of thinking that this communication that you're here to do is like a one and done kind of thing, that you just need to do it so that it's done. It's not. It's like a lifestyle of storytelling that you're here to embrace and experiment with and model and find your freedom within. That says, I am partially healed and I am healing. And this is the story of that. This is the story of me. and to tell that story. And if people don't want to listen, that's not the point, right? Like, you're leaving this behind for anybody at any time. Like, you releasing something into the world, this is something that I'm very much receiving this myself. Like, I'm dealing with this right now, like kind of like separating your work from the impact of that work. And when we tell a story and when we communicate, there is such the whole point is that the information exists in the other person. That is how you know that you've successfully communicated, is that the idea exists in both places now, not just this one over here. So the information has spread, communication has taken place. And so when you tell your story and nobody listens while you're telling it, or you put a video on YouTube and it gets one view and that one was you and nobody else watches it. Dude, I'm speaking from experience here. It's not the point. That's a moment in time. Like, that's like wanting instantly to see the full thousands of year version of what that work will eventually become. And yes, some work, some like videos or whatever your work is, stay at one view for the rest of the time. Like, some of them never become anything, but others, years later, bloom into something that, like, I didn't even know it could do that. Wow, I've never seen that before. So there's like the work of putting it out there. There's the storytelling aspect, the kind of letting go of the communication piece, letting go of leaving behind something that is going to like change the world. Like, that's a lot of pressure to put on one creative soul, bless you. It is important. It's so important. And that came up in the first reading, and I want to put it right here too, because it is so important. And let this be your confirmation to squash all doubt that you do have something inside of you that is meant to exist in the collective. You hearing this message right here, right now, let this be the moment where you stop questioning that ever again. It's true. It's a fact. You have that. It's in your story. That's how, like, every story you tell, every single time you tell it, is like planting a seed into the collective that will grow over time. And those things that grow out of those seeds, those trees that grow and then they put off leaves and then they put off fruit, like, that takes time. The having it exist in the other person takes time. And we don't always get to see that happen, even. Like, when you put your work out into the world and it's absorbed and you never even get to hear how did it go? What did you think? Like, you really don't get to know. We really just have power over, are you actively communicating out? Are you doing your part? Are you showing up and offering to the world? Are you doing the self-expression part? Because without that self-expression part, the communication part where it is received by another person, that can't happen. That's impossible. So the only part that we personally have power over is choosing to tell our story. Love that. Love that for all of us. Let's check out this card. So this is a time for healing, balsamic moon. So that's the last phase in a lunar cycle, is the balsamic moon. It's like you absorb everything that happened during the last 4 weeks, the last lunar cycle, since the previous new moon, and then you're right on the verge of having the next new moon when you're in this phase. And this is upside down. So I'm glad that we're doing this a second time, because after the first one, as I sat with this more, what deepened into my understanding as far as what is this trying to say with let go and a time for healing, but it's upside down. You're right at the end of this phase, meaning the new moon, the new step, the next step is like right there, but it's upside down. And what came through was that there's something, there's like a karmic lesson in your world right now that, and I'm also very much receiving this in my own way. There's a karmic lesson in your world right now where you are like on the last, like the home stretch, the finish line ribbon is like right in front of you. And there's like a sitting still. Like I almost just see us like sitting, us again, because this is me too, like see us sitting on the ground, like right on the inside of the finish line, legs crossed, totally chillaxed, just like hanging out at the end of this karmic lesson, like almost like that last stretch of healing that happens at the end of one lunar cycle before you do the new moon into the next one. Like that healing that happens is like on pause, that we've like paused our healing like right in this place where we can see the next step, but we're sitting right here with the next step. And what does that bring up in you? You know, I see what's flashing in my mind that I'm like, oh yeah, oh wow, oh. Yeah, you're right. Like, I have a lot of stories as it happens around like the things that I want to do in my future and all the reasons why I'm not doing it right now. And part of the letting go is like part of like getting that to kind of like flip back around and be in the upright, like press play on this final chapter of healing, is to let go of the reasons why you can't have what you want. You know, like if you want something, then you can have it. And we have lots of stories, we have lots of explanations, lots of justifications around why our life is the way it is. And there's something that's loosening its grip in this letting go message around like, what is it that you're wanting to move towards? And what is the mindset that needs to be released, like the roof that you can take off to allow your empowerment to grow and blossom, to allow you to have exactly what you want, because you can. You absolutely can. This card is, so we have Emerald and Milk Thistle with Heal the Healer, Soul's Truth, Atlantis, and Emerald Tablets. So I freaking love that. I think it couldn't be more perfect that we have Heal the Healer, A Time for Healing. I leave you the memory of healing tales. Healing, healing, healing. So it's like, if you have any doubt about like what is it that I'm supposed to talk about, healing, I would like almost guarantee that, you know, that's a big genre, right? To talk about healing. There's lots of healing modalities, there's lots of healing experiences, there's so many different tools and techniques and different wounds and how you work with different things. And like the healing in the world is deep and vast and huge. So there's more than enough room for all of us with all of our own healing story. And that is very much kind of the core, though, the bubble, the container of the message that it is that you're here to share, not only of the healing that you personally have experienced. Those are the stories that you're ready to tell right now, are the wounds that you've already healed, the progress that you've already made. Dude, like because this is new, right? This was all underneath. Like I'm going to say, like, as this comes more into your consciousness, which is what this is doing right now, like possibly consider making a list or like a focus wheel even of like in the center you write ways that I've healed. And that's what's in the middle. And then you draw these lines off of that. And like in each space, you fill in each space with all of the different ways that you yourself have healed. And each of those healing journeys, each of those individual healing experiences, each and every teacher that has brought you a nugget of information that made you feel better, all of that is its own part of your story. And you think about like how much have you already lived, and AKA how much of your story do you already have that's ready to tell. And as you continue living, that's only going to generate more and more and more story that is yours to tell. So that is a lot of work. That's a lot of stories that want to come out and be a part of the collective. And I think the best the best advice of what we have so far here is to kind of let go of the process of communicating and more ground yourself into the process of healing. You know, like as you make that focus wheel of the ways that you've healed, pick the biggest one and tell that story first, like, and then go to the next most impactful way that you've healed and tell that story next. Because what you have going on here is not just, relaying the, like the truth, your soul's truth. That's absolutely a part of it. But like, you're not just relaying your soul's truth and your healing journey, you're also creating sparks that will land, right? It's going to land inside the other person. Your story, your information will land like a spark in a brush and will light a fire that will start burning in the other person for their own desire, their own passion, for their own healing. You're whetting their appetite. Ah, so hot. Whetting their appetite for their own healing journey by telling the story of yours, by demonstrating your healed self, by demonstrating your integrations, by demonstrating your, self-awareness that you cultivate. You're whetting their appetite for their own. I cannot understate. I cannot overstate. It's really hard to state how important it is that you tell the story of the healing journey that you've been on. I cannot say that enough. Let's check this out. So we have green epidote. Maybe I say that correctly, maybe not. Should have looked it up, but I didn't. And star jasmine. So we have restructure, identifying, reframing, and enhancing. So make sure you get a good look at that. The green I don't think is coming through as brilliantly as it is on here, but I do think it's interesting, and I'm just noticing that you've got green coming very clearly through both of these cards, and that is heart chakra. And so again, like possibly the healing that's wanting to happen is very specifically of your heart space. Heart-centered community is a medicine in your healing journey that just very much came through super direct, super clear. Thank you very much. Restructuring, identifying, reframing, and enhancing. So like reframing is the piece that I want to focus on here for a second with like this, this such important mission that you are here upon, and the pressure that is so natural to put on yourself when you really care about how important this thing is to yourself and to everyone else. And so reframing that into really like the only thing, and I mean this with all the love and respect in the world, the only thing you have to give is the healing of yourself. So the letting go that's happening, it's like we're not trying to make this part happen, right? Like the communication piece of like, you only know that you've been a successful communicator when the idea exists inside of another person. And we don't know that. Sometimes we never get to know that. And so let go of the process of like what's happening with the information that I'm sharing and focus more on sharing the information that I already have, right? Like clearing out the backlog of telling the stories of the life that I've already lived. That takes a while, geez. Quite a backlog, kind of fun to work off of a waiting list of a long list of material to work with. And then also cultivate and ground into really focus into healing this heart space and possibly cultivating and seeking out heart-centered community where, you're now bringing your healing journey into a space with other people. That's like kind of mixing the energies and creating even greater momentum in your healing journey, that provide even more stories that feed the potency and the importance of the mission that you're upon. So, yeah, like the letting go of the process, letting go of the burden of just how important you really are, and focusing into the healing that you can do that is very much within your control. The way you choose to spend your time, the way you choose to devote yourself to caring for yourself and providing for the things that you need, that is within your control. And when we focus there, when we let go of the process, I feel, I can like almost feel it in my chest. Like I feel like our heart space naturally relaxes and opens up, and what's in there can flow out even more freely. Let's check out the tarot cards that add to kind of each of these arms. So the first one on this side is the Four of Swords. This is such a peaceful energy. I feel like this is like kind of the, again, like the instruction manual of letting go. Like, well, what do I do? Dude, take a nap. Are you sleepy? Are you hungry? How about go get your belly full of some yummy snacks and get yourself situated in a cozy, comfy spot and really let go and fall asleep, right? Like that's the, oh God, that's the most divine surrender that there is just to let go of consciousness itself, which is to say, let go of the illusion that that consciousness has control over anything at all. It may be tempting. I know, I personally have really resonate with a lot of conditioning around hard work and like laziness is sinful and like all of these things, where napping is probably not like your first thought, again, because this is all turned over. Possibly this is a newer idea in your consciousness. But that resting, like I heard Laura Waldman this week on her free wealth retreat, which was so abundant, talking about resting into riches and relaxing into riches, and how when we let go, when we, try less hard, like less is more, like this is that activation. This is that initiation. I'm getting very strong Taurus vibes, like you might be a Taurus rising or a Taurus North Node or a Taurus Moon, something like that, where like this is your turning point where the less you try, the greater it's going to be, right? Like the less you try to make your mission happen and the more you just focus on healing what you can feel that's real inside of yourself, just being present in the moment with yourself, that really that's the best thing you can do to leave something with the world that will change, that will like, set up a whole new genre for thousands of years to come. Like the best thing you can do is take a nap, is to surrender to your true nature, your animal nature, and whatever it's calling for from you. The other one here, we have the Fool. Pile number 1 had the Fool 2.0. If that resonates, you might want to check that out. But very much a leap of faith, and that makes a lot of sense, where these are, turned over and newer ideas, and how, especially if it does conflict with conditioning that you have around, no, I need to work hard, I need to make it happen, I need to, fake it till I make it, and I need to hustle and grind, and like all of these ideas, like we can soak these things up. They're in the culture, they're in the atmosphere. That's not your fault. But, you got to ask yourself, like, what feels good for me? And if it feels good, great. But if you're getting the message, let go, and that's already been coming through your intuition and synchronicities that you've already been seeing, that, maybe there is a piece of the effort that is more draining than it is cup filling. And absolutely, like, there's no recipe, especially where this is a general reading and, multiple people listening to it, there's no recipe that every single person is going to be able to take this and be like, oh, okay, so every time I'm, struggling or stuck or whatever, I'm supposed to just let go and take a nap. Like, dude, only you can know that. So, like, listen to your intuition, like, it will guide you. But what I can say is experiment with it, like, be curious with it. Where, like, I really want to make something happen, but I feel like I'm pushing on a brick wall that doesn't feel like it's budging in the slightest. And even if all you do is like kind of turn inward and feel what's in your body, surrender to the right here, right now. Like I just like felt down into my shoulders and they were all hunched up by my ears. And so I relaxed them and I shook them out. And then I check my jaw and I see how much tension is there. I check my shoulders again and the backs of my shoulders. I check my hands and how much tension is there. Check my legs and my feet. In just about 10 seconds, you can scan through at a high level your body and feel, where am I holding tension? Where am I holding on? Where could I be letting go? Even if that's just to release, your tongue's pushed up against the roof of your mouth and you just let that go. You let it relax. You grant that to yourself. That's the kind of Four of Swords, the Fool experimentation with relaxation, that this is like kind of an invitation to restructure your life in this fashion of practicing that awareness when you do feel tension in your being and letting it go. Choosing to surrender the part that feels like this is struggle for struggle's sake, and allowing yourself to rest more often. Like I would imagine for the most part, most people's conditioning leads them away from rest instead of towards rest. But the cool thing about conditioning is that the whole reason that it works is because we are adaptive beings. So that means that if you can be conditioned, you can be reconditioned. So, as we grow up, as we mature in our own energy, like that's essentially what we're doing. We're reconditioning ourselves. We're reparenting ourselves to more align the care that we're receiving from ourselves with who we really are and what we really need. And when I sink into really letting go of my conditioned ideas and sink into the truth of my soul, I am sleepy. I'm a tired being. I have generally low physical energy. And so, granting yourself permission to take a little cat nap or go to bed at 5 p.m. or sleep late, if that's what you're needing to do. Like there are days where I'll get up and be up for like an hour and then be like, you know what? One cup of coffee in, I'm going back to bed. I need more sleep. I need to fall back asleep. And so to really listen to what your body is asking you for, what your pleasure is in any moment, and when that pleasure is rest, to grant yourself that in any moment, and that the healing journey work is to figure out why you're not already doing that. Not in an accusatory way at all. Pile number 2, I hold you in this space, with me included. I'm holding us all, as far as like it is the conditioning. There are these truths that soak into us that other people, said over and over and over again, and we absorbed it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's our soul's truth. And when something really causes us to feel heavy and drained, that it's not our truth, that we're living according to somebody else's routine, somebody else's recipe, because in our routine and our recipe, we feel amazing. We feel liberated. We feel free. We feel like every moment we're exactly where we're meant to be. And we may not always feel good, feel exactly, great, but we're where we meant to be. And sometimes that's tucked into your bed an hour after you got up and it's time for more sleep. Like maybe that's what's in service of this greater mission in this right here, right now moment. And sometimes that means we have to let go of what we think the process is going to look like. So underneath Heal the Healer, what do we have here for our tarot? So we have the Five of Wands. So we have some rivals here. We have like this will and this will and this conflict in the middle of that. We also have the Ten of Wands. We have like a figure here with a big, looks very heavy sack of things on its back, and we have footsteps here showing that, maybe that they've made this trip many times. I definitely get like, this is not ease. This is kind of the opposite of what we're seeing over here as far as like, maybe this is in the outer world, maybe it's in your inner world. We've been talking a lot about conditioning. Maybe that it is our self-talk that we're kind of in conflict with between, our conditioned trying to be good self and our soul. Like maybe that's what's working out. It could also be external. A lot of times, like if, all this was underneath, so like a lot of times if it was unconscious, most likely it has manifested out into your physical world, but that's maybe just for some of you. I know I'm definitely like feeling it, seeing it, all of the above. And so like we really have like almost, I'm seeing scales here, like we really almost have like two different ways, like a choice point at any moment when we feel ourselves holding tension or pushing against something that feels really heavy. We feel ourselves under the burden of trying to deliver something that feels so friggin' important, but I don't know what to do. What do I do? Tell me what to do. It feels like struggle. And the message that, this was right side up, this was face up, this is already in your consciousness is to let go. And let go of what? Let go of the struggle. Nobody else needs to agree. You don't have to carry the responsibilities. You are not obligated to anywhere. Again, I'm telling this very much to myself. You can choose to grant yourself, you can choose to experiment with your own rest cycle, your own surrender, your own process of letting go. And like what another example that just came in, I heard a friend of mine talking here just this morning about how she's kind of like practicing like letting go of her phone, like just for little chunks of time, like to leave it turned off for a couple hours during the day each day, and to kind of be without that and surrender to, what is there when that's gone, where that takes up a lot of our focus. Like, what if you let go of that? Then what are you left with? And so she's spending time in that space for just a little chunk of time each day. And that, that example wanted to come through here as well. So it could be, awake and asleep, or it could be like plugged into technology and not plugged into technology. It could be, being around your friends or family or significant other or whatever, and like being in your own solitude. Like I'm definitely getting the sense of like there's something that you're hanging on to that is keeping you out of your healing journey, like kind of keeping this healing moment, this healing chapter on pause. That like if you were to surrender that thing and let it go, it would only yield beautiful results. It would only enhance the potency of what it is that you're able to experience on your healing journey, yes, for you, and the receptivity of the world to what it is that you're sharing. The more you embody it, the more you walk your talk. That's like really, I think, what this is. It's easy to want to just tell stories and say things and like speak what's true, but it's a completely different matter to live and embody that truth for ourselves. And so, there's a lot of talk about love and peace and, surrender and whatever. And it's like to actually practice that is huge, important work of training our nervous systems to relax, training ourselves to know that we are safe, to be able to unclench ourselves, to stop protecting ourselves, to stop, fighting it out with other people, to stop having to protect ourselves from other people or have that illusion that we have to protect ourselves or that we have to prove ourselves by being such a good little servant that like we're getting all our responsibilities done, we're doing all the things, we're living up to our responsibilities. So to stop, and again, the experimentation comes back into it. It's like experiment with trying a little less, struggling a little less. When you catch yourself in moments of struggle and tension, intentionally remembering this moment and using it to let go. What would that look like on a 1-degree turn? Letting go, of making a leap of faith and choosing to surrender whatever tug of war it feels like you're in, to just let go of your end of the rope, to essentially squash the tug of war, not win it, but to render it irrelevant because you don't want to participate. This is your message of empowerment that you are ready to hear, is that at any time you can choose to not participate any longer in the struggle of whatever it is that this represents for you personally inside this general reading. Pile number 2, it has been my absolute freaking pleasure to get to read for somebody who has a mission like this in the world, and to hopefully open up even just one more ounce of your empowerment to let go of the struggle and to embrace the ease and the natural flow of your journey, the pleasure of your journey. It has been my pleasure to hopefully sync you up even just one more little percent with your own pleasure. Pile number 2, this has been your message. If you have enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more readings like this one, more coming soon and all the time. If your intuition is guiding you to check out 1 or 2 or 3 of the other piles, please don't hesitate to do that. There may be additional messages there for you. Until next time, I do hope that you will take care of the very, very important being that you are, and so will I. Hello, pile number 3. Welcome to your reading. You have chosen one of the mystery piles for your message of empowerment. And the way we're doing this reading, for those of you that skipped the intro, no big deal, we are taking which cards are face up as the energy that's on your conscious level, meaning you're already aware of these patterns and messages coming through your reality through synchronicities or hearing the same thing from multiple different people, those kinds of things. So the face up cards are the ones that, as I was shuffling and like trying to, make the piles, they came out of the deck face up. Like they immediately showed themselves to me. And then meanwhile, there were a lot of cards that even when they had every reason to flip over, they were adamant about, no, I am a face down card. So for whatever reason, we are interpreting, well, we all know the reason, right? Spirit, intuition, hello. But we are interpreting those face down cards as the pieces that are still in your subconscious, unconscious space of your being, and that are the newer pieces that are just beginning to wiggle and come into view. So as we turn over the pile, you'll see that your main card, we'll get to that when we read the unconscious energies. We're going to start with the conscious ones though, and so your first conscious card is Pallas Athena with think. Pallas Athena. Pallas Athena is one of the asteroids, if you're familiar in astrology. Asteroids in general represent the divine feminine. and think is very masculine. It's very interesting to me that Pallas Athena represents think. It's like almost maybe this harmonizing of the masculine and feminine within your thinking that is part of what's been coming online, right? This is our first conscious energy card that we're aware of. And then we have this one as one of your unconscious, so we'll leave that there for a moment. Our next conscious energy that we have already is Sekhmet. I hope I'm saying that right. She's the red lady, and it says, I am pure strength. I honor my anger by giving voice to it. Wow, the red lady. I honor my anger by giving voice to it. So possibly that means that you have been aware that possibly there are some frustrations or even anger lurking inside of you that need to be expressed. So this idea of giving a voice to your anger is something that is already becoming conscious to you, that you're already aware of. So we have these two that are both down. We have this one that is also down. And then we have all of these energies are conscious as well. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at what these are telling us, again, before we start exploring these currently hidden to us realms of this entire message of empowerment. So far, we have this harmonizing of masculine and feminine and allowing our anger to come through, which I definitely see how a harmony within masculine and feminine would be required to allow anger to manifest, because it is part of the darker, heavier aspects of feminine energy are those powerful driving force, all their own emotions that feel like they can take us over, that they can swallow us whole. And the masculine is historically afraid of losing control in that powerful emotional drive of the feminine. So in order to allow anger to manifest, your masculine has to be pretty healed, that you're even thinking about letting your emotions rise and be expressed to that point. It speaks to like a lot of inner security that you've already cultivated within yourself. And then so this main card is like your ultimate message of empowerment. Like, what is it that's wanting to click into place to, help you to move forward in a meaningful way on your soul's evolutionary journey? And the rest of this is the rest of the picture, as far as like, what is it that you're doing with that, or how is it that that's going to happen, or where is it that you're supposed to take that. So like, we're learning more about this piece of the puzzle through the rest of these cards. So these down here that have already revealed themselves, I'm laying that as a foundation to say, like, these are part of the how, the why, the where, the who, all of that. And so I want to start over here where we have this clue of the red lady and anger. And I think it's so interesting that under that and overlapping with this, we have the moon, right? The moon card in the tarot specifically speaks to our emotions. We have the light and the dark. She's underwater. She's submerged. And the way that that's overlapping with our thinking is kind of like, I see that as part of the piece of the puzzle that's clicking into place, is we're realizing, and again, I lump myself in with these messages because I do feel like I receive them first and foremost on behalf of all of us. I feel like I'm very much on the same part of the path that this is talking about, where like realizing that the emotions are, not radically more important than our thinking, but at least enough of more important to sway us in our decision making. Like when head versus heart gets going, what's the tiebreaker? And I feel like this arrangement of the moon, our emotions kind of overlapping with our thinking is like, realizing that there really is never a tie, that the 51% majority shareholder is our heart, are our emotions, that is our primal guidance system, and that is really a source of strength. That those emotions, when you let them flow, it is a source of strength and life force energy and vitality. And when you let your emotions flow, anger is inevitable. It's part of that guidance system. And this other piece here with the Queen of Pentacles that we also have on that side under our anger, which is very interesting. Like you typically would think of like fire energy with anger, and the Queen of Pentacles is very earthy, very much manifesting in the physical. And what I'm getting as far as your message of empowerment, pile number 3, with this anger is a specific confirmation that as you channel this energy, as you honor your anger by giving voice to it, that you're ultimately able to do that in a way that brings you material success, not in a way that sets up wars or competition or anything like that. Like the way you vocalize your anger, the way you're able to channel it out into your work and your relationships and the things that you say and the things that you don't say, right? The invitations you accept and the invitations you don't accept. The way you engage with your emotions, it brings you a lot of material wealth and respect in the physical as far as someone who is deeply emotional, is a big feeler, but at the end of the day, you've obviously channeled that into and like harnessed the power of that into driving you forward in this life that you're living. Anger is inevitable. When you are pure strength, when you come up against an opponent that enters your physical space, your territory, they cross your boundary, whatever that boundary happens to be, anger is the natural response. And so I'm definitely getting like kind of a shift in your mindset around anger, even as like it's not this ugly, awful, violent thing that we may have been taught about how taboo it is, how like we're just not allowed to get mad. That like as soon as you get mad, you got to go away from society and like cool off or whatever. But there really is an empowered way to channel anger, and there's such a thing as divine rage and sacred rage, and the fuel and the strength that can provide to us. And so I'm seeing here where you've really figured that out. So I'm excited to unveil some of this other information to do with that picture. On this side, all of this and all of this is like part of what's hidden. So over here, we have like kind of an isolated chunk of energy. I'm reading this like a natal chart all of a sudden. Like we have this isolated chunk of energy that says, we have these 2 cards here. We have the 9 of Wands, this one, and we have the 3 of Wands, this one. And it's very interesting to me that they're in this order, right? Like I take none of this as a coincidence. Like it's very much telling a story of what is happening here. And the 9 of Wands is about needing strength because the journey is long and nobody's helping you, and there's very few people on your side, and there's a lot of struggle that you're up against. And that this has kind of like, made you this very serious, I want to say fighter for what it is that you desire. And that can look a lot of different ways. Like that's where my hesitation comes from around the word fighter, is that we all fight in very different ways. There could be passive fighting, there can be right out aggressive fighting. It may be more passive, especially with some of these other like very feminine cards in the mix, but there's definitely like a spirit of if I want it, I have to fight for it. And that like life is struggle, And part of the message of empowerment that you're ready to hear is that there is something else that's possible, right? Like over here, kind of simultaneously behind the scenes of the struggle, you've been figuring out how to work with your emotions and how to harness the power of those such that, it really begs the question, like, do you need as much effort? Do you need as much struggle and strength and just pure determination, Nine of Wands? Do you need all of that when you have, like, I just saw like a sailboat, like when you have a sail that is your process, your spiritual process that allows all this emotion to rise up within you and then push against that sail such that that becomes a force all its own, where you're holding yourself in this supportive way, in this really deeply caring way. And that at that point, do you need oars? Do you need the paddle where it's you personally, like driving the ship and propelling things forward? Like, do you really need that? And I think that's so interesting. I hadn't even thought about that, but like, check it out. Here you are, like with a surfboard, which is a very similar concept to the sailboat of like, you're not paddling. Like, yes, you have to get yourself out there and then you kind of like paddle to get up on the wave. But like, I've never surfed, I've only seen it done. But like, it looks really cool. And it definitely captures this idea of you're riding on the wave. You're not the one that's doing it. Like I'm hearing very clearly, like, what's coming through you, like the well of emotion that rises within you, the anger, the love, the bliss, the lust, the passion, the everything that rises through you is that wind in your sails, such that the momentum is taking care of itself. The path is very much taking care of itself. And I'm also getting chariot energy here, as far as like, your job is to hang on. Your job is to like, to just hold yourself, to just like, oh, there's a little tear here in my sail. Let me like mend this tear. Let me do some self-care. Let me maintain my sail, AKA my physical vessel, AKA my energetic body. Let me maintain that. Let me hold myself in this position. And then every ounce of emotion that rises acts to propel us forward. So there's like a message of kind of like dialing down the effort with what's happening here. So that's what I see as far as the conscious energies that are already, making themselves known to you. So if that doesn't resonate, right? Like if that's like, and I haven't really been seeing those messages, then maybe this isn't the pile for you. So I do caution you about that as we go to uncovering the unconscious messages here. Keep that in mind. So, but if that resonates, if you're like, oh my God, yeah, everything I see is like, get mad, like inviting me to express all this passion and rage and just like, I don't even know. I don't know if I want to be swallowed whole by my emotions, but I can feel the power of them. I do have a little bit of success when it comes to like, soothing my emotions and creating something that they can flow into such that like that outlet is productive and constructive, channeling that energy. That you have had some shifts in your mindset around opening up to accepting the value and the beauty and the value, I can't even state enough, like the value of emotion, the power, the strength of emotion, like that has come into your mindset. Maybe over many, many years it took to get that message across. Hello, me. But let's begin then exploring like what are the rest of these messages that are ready to come through. And I want to start with your main message of empowerment that you are ready to hear at this time. So the first piece of the unconscious information that wants to come through. How appropriate is that? Overcoming obstacles. Overcoming obstacles. And I really want to get like this on her third eye is really jumping out at me. And then this guy, the octopus, that's like right there, like working with her. In like from the ethereal almost. Octopuses may be significant for some of you. It's definitely a synchronicity for me. overcoming obstacles. So as far as your main message of empowerment and kind of what we've seen here so far, again, I'm seeing very much that, like, the difference between a paddle boat and a sailboat, paddle boat and sailboat, and like the force, the power behind those two options, like using your physical muscles to do it or using your emotional body to do it, to manifest the solution, to manifest the path opening, to manifest, you got a 20-foot block, you need a 21-foot ladder, whatever it is to like get over the obstacle. And so, the main thing I want to say here is that, chances are at this point, this is resonating as far as like there's a specific obstacle that's coming to mind. In your life that maybe it's been there for a long time, maybe it's somewhat recent, doesn't really matter, but you're watching this video right now to tell you the message of empowerment that you're ready to hear is that you absolutely can overcome this obstacle. And that's number one message, is that this obstacle is overcomable. So there's like a picture here. We're doing boat analogies for whatever reason. Maybe boats are significant to you. Maybe water has a lot to do with this, with the emotion piece coming through. But I'm seeing that like worrying about this obstacle is basically like a hole in your boat, and the boat takes on water. And, at that point, like, the emotion is rising up in you and the sail is doing its job, and like here we are like going along, but like now the boat isn't hollow, it's filling with water, and the sail has to work that much harder. And so there's like this leak in the energy field of worrying about this obstacle. And this is the message of empowerment that you're ready to hear, is that you need not worry about this obstacle. And here's the part that I am so excited, that I am like literally honored, and it is my joy and my pleasure. There's nowhere in the world I would rather be than right here, right now, delivering to you this message that says the obstacle is there to awaken this. That like without the obstacle, without the 20-foot high challenge that shows up in your way, you never need to go out looking for a 21-foot ladder. And once you have the obstacle and now you need the ladder, and then you go get the ladder and that gets you over that obstacle, at that point, the obstacle is overcome. Woohoo, great, but that's like a moment in time. Dude, you own a 21-foot ladder now. Like, look at all the things you can do with it. Like, holy shit, it's endless. The places you can climb, and the things you can be on top of now that you have this 21-foot ladder. And the next obstacle that you come up against, now it's a 30-foot wall and you need a 31-foot ladder. And it's the same idea. Every obstacle is like linking you up with what is it that's going to get you around it. And look, it leads to a shit ton, a metric shit ton, that's the technical term, of wealth coming to you because you have all of these ladders. You have a sailboat that goes really, really, really fast. And people will want to buy a seat on that sailboat to cross their journey in faster time. Like, look at over here, you got this little paddle boat and you can put one person on it and you can row them across the ocean. You can do that. Like, that's something that, we've been doing it. We've been trying way harder than we need to, we, myself included. And it doesn't have to be like that. Like, we have a sailboat where you could put lots of people on there. Okay? And like the more obstacles we face, kind of the bigger the boat gets, the bigger the sail gets, the better we take care of ourselves, the bigger the sail gets. And the bigger the boat, the bigger the sails, the faster you can go and the more people you can take with you on your way. And it's that taking people along with you that's adding value to the world through your life specifically that is returning all of this wealth to you. You serve an incredibly important function taking others across obstacles. You know, you made a 21-foot ladder because you had a 20-foot wall. And now look at all the people that are like, hey, can I borrow your ladder? Yeah, yeah, you can. Or can I rent your ladder for the day for $100? Hello, you know, but sometimes like the wealth is just feeling good that like they needed the ladder and I had it and I wasn't using it. So sure, go ahead, like borrow it. And now they're like, oh my God, like look at what's possible, what I'm capable of with this ladder that I wasn't capable of before. Like, thank goodness they had that. And why did you have it? Because of the obstacle. You know, so there's like a love that's wanting to come through for whatever this obstacle is that you're currently up against and the solution that it's birthing from inside of you, through you. It's very significant for the all. So have I even flipped another card yet? I don't even think. Oh, I did. The overcome obstacles. I'm like, what? Where did that all come from? Okay, so that was that was the main message of empowerment that you're ready to hear right now, pile number 3. Since we have most of this already uncovered, I'm going here next to say like, okay, tell me more about this emotion piece. Actually, you know what? Abandon ship, because I just heard you guys like, no, I want to know about this. So, okay, so let's do this side first. So let's go here. Okay. Take time to breathe out. Take time to breathe out. Disseminating moon. Disseminating moon. I love that for you guys because the disseminating moon makes me think of like kind of like sending the energy out, right? Like releasing it and sending it out to others, which again, I feel like, you know, they're not the reason you're building the boat or the ladder or whatever. Like you're doing it for your own survival. You're doing it so you personally can stay afloat. But you've learned that like I can stay afloat just in my little paddle boat here. You know, I know how to do that. I know how to like keep myself on top of the water. And I feel this opening up and like breathing through these bigger obstacles that are coming so that you are inspired and engaged in building bigger and bigger and bigger vessels that can carry more and more and more other people along with the journey that you're on. It's really beautiful. Pile number 3. Like I know another one with the 3 of Wands, another message is kind of the nervousness of like, I don't know if I can do this. Like I have never done this before. Like I don't know if I'm gonna like be able to stand up on this board. I don't know if I'm gonna fall off into the water. Like I don't know what's gonna happen. And that nervousness, you know, like that just goes right back to self-care. Goes right back to take a breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. Take a moment to come back into a thought process and a mindset that holds your obstacle as your teacher, take it a step further, as your compassionate teacher. The obstacle wants to be conquered. It wants the ladder to exist. It wants to be overcome. That's why it's here. That's why it's presenting itself to you, because the universe is pretty damn sure that you're the one that knows how to build this ladder. You can do this. You can do this. And the how that we're still very much getting into, like, you know, this reading is one perfect example, but any of the spiritual work that you're doing to hold yourself in greater alignment with the goodness that you inherently are. Knowing that you are good no matter what happens, no matter what obstacle might show up in your path. really holding that mindset, stubbornly grounding yourself in that mindset that says there's a solution to everything. Talk about being empowered. Like, there is no obstacle that can stop me. There's only, the inspiration for the next thing that I'm going to create. And then once I create that thing and I move down the path a little bit, there will be the inspiration, aka the obstacle, for the next thing that I'm going to create. And that this vantage point of the obstacle, like as soon as you see the obstacle, get excited because you're about to have a 21-foot ladder or whatever it is that you'll then be in possession of. You'll be the proud owner of that thing at that time. Let's see what this one has to offer for us. I don't even think I've seen this card before. Interesting. Fuchsia and feldspar with inner child, innocence, and self-awareness. There's dragonflies and these little flowers. I'm guessing that's feldspar. I don't know that. I'm innocent. I don't know. Oh, allowing, right? Like allowing it to be. The how do you look at an obstacle like that? How do you be blocked even temporarily? Is this inner child, like, the inner child would walk up to something and just start looking at it, start exploring the obstacle, start, getting this piece out and looking at this piece, like there's a curiosity, there's an innocence, there's a not presuming that you should know how to do everything. There's like a natural comfort with being a beginner and being the student, being the one who doesn't know. When you're a child, that's you all the time. So you're just kind of like in that mode. But like this is like very much like, how do you do that? You remind yourself that like every time you're a beginner, you're about to learn something new. The obstacle is bringing you something new that is wanting to exist in your life. It wants to exist in your life, again, for the good of the all. We are all in this together, every one of us benefiting from each other's creations. I love that your inner child is part of this. Let's see what this is. Empowerment. I love like what these like look like peacock feathers almost. Empowerment. Number 35. Assert yourself and shine your power now. Now. That's a very powerful message. Now. Like, what is it now? What is it? Like this obstacle is more and more and more like it's already here and you've been unconsciously struggling towards it, like wishing it wasn't here basically and kind of like running away from it. But this like empowerment, like if you were going to turn and face it, like what is the obstacle that's really in the way? What is it? And what's coming through me right now, so take this if it resonates and leave it if it doesn't, but what's coming through me right now is that it's what's really standing in the way is not the obstacle itself, it's the thinking around the obstacle. That's all. Like these two being right together, like empower your thinking. Realize the obstacle is overcomable. The obstacle wants you to overcome it. It wants to be overcome. It wants to be conquered. That word keeps coming through and I keep denying it because it sounds so aggressive, sounds so like dominant and submissive almost, but like it wants you to conquer it with your divine feminine. It wants that. So know that it's like working with you. It's the yeast that makes the bread rise. Like it catalyzes you into something that you would not otherwise be. And from all angles, I shouldn't say all angles, there might be holdouts in your conscious self, but like from almost all angles of ourselves, we want to be that evolved, more empowered version of ourselves. That more healed, more whole, more fully online, more fully synced up and tapped in to who and what we really are. It wants to exist. Know that. Stop doubting it. Close the leak in the boat of worrying that this obstacle, whatever it is, and I know, like the unconscious nature of this card being turned over tells me that there was like almost a foregone conclusion that I just have to suffer like this. This is just, Nine of Wands, like this is just part of life. This is just here. This is just how it is, kind of thing, to where you like almost wouldn't even acknowledge that it is an obstacle and therefore can be overcome, that there is a solution. And I get that that's hard to acknowledge because there's the sense of like, I don't know if I'm capable of that. Three of Wands. I've never done that before. Like, I've only ever driven a paddle boat. I only know how to use these two oars to get my boat to move. I don't know how to sail. I don't know how to tie that thing. I don't know how to do this part. I don't know when to do it like this. I don't know how. And so that fear of, I don't know how, that's the part that I feel like is really coming through with this inner child energy and reminder and message is like, remember the beauty of your innocence. I don't know how is not a death sentence. And I have to remind myself of that in my own thinking. Like when you're up against something that feels taller than you, that's okay. And when we're children, we're constantly surrounded by things that are taller than we are. And we knew that that's just what it was, that we were going to grow. And so this mindset of knowing that anything that is up against you and feels bigger than you and taller than you is how tall you're about to grow. There's imminent growth being unlocked through any obstacle. It's like a portal of growth that we go through to come up against an obstacle. So that is this side of struggle and breathing out the challenge, remembering the innocence of I don't know, that doesn't make you bad. It makes you innocent. That's part of the virgin territory that you came here to explore. It's not been explored yet. It's brand new. That newness all by itself can be an obstacle, right? Like when we don't know what we're doing. But it's time. Right now, it's time. And I'm very much getting the sense that, like, it's important to remember that there can be a long path that you can see. There can be a big vision that you can see of like, where are you headed? What is it that you're wanting to create or not, right? That this is just for some of you, but like there can be a lot that you're aware of at one time, especially when you're deeply emotional, that like takes reality and just like cranks it up to a million. There's a lot of information. And so it's important to breathe out. It's important to like relax into the present right here, right now moment. And again, that's where I go back to like the obstacle is somewhat of an illusion. It's somewhat like, it's not that person or that thing or that assignment or that whatever it is that's standing in my way. It's me thinking that I'm only 10 feet tall and that's a 20-foot wall, so I'm screwed. That thinking is what keeps us disempowered. So the part of like right now, how could you face your empowerment? How could you 1% more lean into your empowerment? You could practice believing in yourself. You could practice closing the hole in the boat that is your worry that you're not going to be able to do this. You can do this. The obstacle wants to be conquered specifically by, I think I just put a T in that word. It's so extra. Like it's very impactful. The obstacle wants to be conquered specifically by you. That's why it's here. It wants to be overpowered by you specifically. So it will poke and poke and poke and poke and poke until right? Every single thing that you want will be on the other side of that obstacle until you want it bad enough to go ahead and figure out, how do I design a 21-foot ladder? How do I do it? What do I do? What do I need to do? And the part that wanted to come through a second ago that's really loud and clear right now is like a huge part of the how, again, going back to the center child piece, is the community around it, right? The community of teachers, the community of parents and adults and authority figures and like guidance around that, like, you're not there by yourself in your innocence, right? Like, as we become adults, there can be, again, another illusion that we have to figure it out all by ourselves. And this innocence is saying, get help. You know, when we're innocent, we have no problem asking for help. When we are truly outmatched, there's likely meant to be a connection formed between us and the person who will help us design our solution to get over the obstacle that we're currently facing. So, you know, sometimes obstacles are divine connectors in that way. You know, the person that you reach out to help with your obstacle ends up becoming a super impactful figure that is able to help you with way more than just that one obstacle. They transplant, you know, empowerment into your consciousness by helping you. And again, it's not just for that 120-foot wall. Now you own the ladder. It's yours to possess and to use and to continuously move forward, meeting larger and larger obstacles. So let's see what we have on this side to go along with our mindset shift around our emotions and letting that all come in. What is this? That's so freaking bizarre. These don't all look like this, and yet these two look almost exactly the freaking same. That's so crazy. So, fairies' orders: rest, replenish, and release guilt. Rest, replenish, and release guilt. This one is like kind of being showered from the outside. I'm not sure if you can see that. There's like a cup that's pouring and like showering this person in replenishment. And then this one over here, this inner child innocence and self-awareness, is like this portal from the inside out that is giving life to the being. And like in both cards, like both of these markers of healing and medicine, that both of them show your light body, show your energy body. And so both of them being upside down like makes me wonder, like, is your energy body something that you have a regular relationship with? Is it something you check into? Is it something that you like are consciously paying attention to, right? Like self-awareness. Like, do you pay attention to tightnesses in your energy or your muscles, like the physical sensations in your body, right? Like our light body and our physical body, they are like kind of right on top of each other. They exist in the same space in different dimensions. Never said that before. That sounds very accurate to me though. Take it if it resonates. And that basically like we feel our energy body through the way the physical sensations move through our physical body. So like if you've ever just been sitting there and then all of a sudden like you start having a tremor in your finger, or all of a sudden you get this like sharp pain in your side, or like literally out of nowhere physical sensations, like to me, I interpret that when I have those as energy in my light body that is there wanting to be worked with. Same as if you know, wake up in the middle of the night and you have a Charlie horse in the back of your leg and you massage it to get it to like dissipate and get that energy to spread back out. That's basically what I'm talking about here, is like stopping anytime you have an acute sensation inside your light body, stopping and listening and dealing with it, paying attention to it like it is one of the most important sources of information that you have, is what's going on in your physical vessel, in your energetic body. Those are messages downloading through your physicality. Like we can sense, we have, I mean, they say the five senses, like, dude, we have hundreds, if not thousands or millions of sensors inside of our body, way more than just five. Every single ounce of our nerve endings are their own sense. Like, that's how many senses we have in our body. So again, when you really get into your emotions, the amount of information that you're getting, the amount of possibly tension or obstacles, the frequency of obstacles that you can run into, it's just such a rich experience. And the reason for it, again, goes all the way back to this overarching message of empowerment that you are absolutely meant to hear right now, which is every ounce of any of those obstacles that we will face and come into contact with are helping us to grow into the stronger, more empowered, more assertive, for the good of the all version of ourselves. We are embracing our anger, our fire energy for the good of the all. We are no longer willing to shy away from the destructive or out of control version of ourselves. We realize that if there is a lioness that wants to come out of us, lionesses are most vicious when they're protecting their cubs, when they're protecting their pack. And so if you're getting angry, and then we're denying it and saying, like, you shouldn't be XYZ, or be quiet, calm down. It's like, that's your protective instinct, and that's the world needs that to protect things that are valuable. You happen to be the one manifesting that drive, that urge to protect, and then talking yourself out of it. It like literally takes the wind right out of your sails and leaves you having to row the boat yourself. But you don't have to. We do not have to. We can allow our sacred emotion, those sacred messages coming through our light body all day, every freaking day, we can let those be the power that drives us. And sometimes that's going to mean giving a voice to some of the less appreciated by society versions of our emotions. Let's reveal this last card and see what the heck. Oh my gosh, we have the Queen of Wands. We have another queen. Of course, of course, of course, of course. The Queen of Wands, the Queen of Fire, the Queen of Pentacles, the Queen of Earth. And how beautifully, when you accept your fire, when you accept your fire and your emotions, it leads to earthly success. It leads to physical wealth coming to you at every opportunity, just like this card right here of like the cup showering and pouring so much nourishment and replenishment onto you at all times. But it's coming through your emotions. That's the source of it flowing into your life, is through your emotions. So however big that valve is, like whether it's completely squished off, aka like your emotions are completely cut off, aka your physical sensations in your body are completely cut off, aka your ability to hear the unconditional love that the source, the energy, the universe, the God spark, like whatever you want to call it, all of that is flowing through your emotions. So if it's cut off, you're cut off from all of it. But when you expand, when you allow your emotions to begin flowing, and let me tell you, there is no end to the vastness that that channel can become. I am years into like opening up my emotions, and I feel like I am only scratching the surface, but I can absolutely attest that when you combine your fire and letting your creative spark and like that raw primal passion, maybe even a little bit aggressive, but in that aggression, like the go-getterness, the go get what you want and have it for yourself. And the more often you do that, the more often you lay claim to whatever it is that you want, and you make yourself a path, you blaze your own trail straight to it, there's absolutely going to be reward from that. It's like a radical, going back over here, a radical belief in yourself, a radical belief that you absolutely deserve every single thing that you want. You absolutely can and will overcome, you will conquer every single obstacle that ever shows up in your path. You need not worry. You need not allow your boat to take on one drop of water, worrying that you cannot overcome this obstacle. I just would love nothing more than if this message could plant in your brain as a seed, that as that tree grows, it will naturally eradicate every single worry that you ever have. This is your message of empowerment that you were meant to hear at this time. Dear friend, I'm so freaking grateful that you're here, that you're watching this, that you're hanging around my channel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below. Subscribe if you want more messages like this, and comment if you have questions, if you have topic suggestions, if you have specific messages that you would love to get from Spirit, please let me know down below. I have absolutely been overjoyed by the pleasure, the like literal pleasure of getting to spend time in this space with you. My absolute honor and privilege to be able to deliver this message at this time. Until next time, I do hope that you will take such good care of the being, the very important being that you are, and so will I. Hello, pile number 4. Welcome to your reading. This is so exciting. This pile number 4, I am recording 8 days after I recorded piles 1 and 2. Pile 3 was a couple days after the first couple, and then it was like 5 days waiting to see what is in this pile and what message is it that wants to come through. And the main, message that I already can share, you've chosen one of the mystery piles here where we really don't even get a sense of what is the message that wants to go through. And this pile actually has the most face down cards. Like I explained, if you skipped it, no worries at all. But I explained, like, when I'm shuffling them, I took the ones that popped out of the deck face up and translated that into, that is the part of the energy that is already conscious for you, that you're already aware of. And I'm going to take the tractor driving by outside, that noise in the background, as confirmation that the face up cards in this pile will resonate for you if this is your message. So the energy that's already part of your conscious awareness, you're already aware of, you'll recognize that. And then the face down cards, those are parts and pieces that are still unconscious in your awareness. And I've also, if you came through any of the other 3 piles to get here, I'm very much receiving these messages on our behalf. So meaning I am very much the first, like, patient 0 recipient of this message coming through, and I'm sharing it with you as well. And so I don't take it as like a bunch of advice that I am giving to you. I take it as something that Spirit is giving to us both. So thank you so much for listening to all of that and getting caught up on how this reading is going to go. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and lay out your cards so that we can get a sense of what are, since we don't know what the main message is, and that's what these are going to be, kind of the main focus as you go forward in your next level of empowerment. This is the message of empowerment that you're ready to hear at this time. But let's go ahead and get a sense for what are the cards that are upright. So this is the first one. So pretty. It's the 10th house, card 48, and it says authority. And there's a hiker here moving his way up the mountain. So that is one of the cards that we have flipped over. We'll get the full picture of what is already conscious and we'll go from there. This is one of your other unconscious energies. This is your second conscious card. So White Buffalo Calf Woman, the prophetess of the sacred way. My heart is a compass. The path of love is true abundance. The sacred way. My heart is a compass. That actually goes really well with authority as far as like using your heart and your, the compass that is your heart as your authority. So I'm sure we're going to get more into that. We have 2 of these crystal and herb medicine cards, both unconscious. We have this natural medicine card, also unconscious. And then We have all of these unconscious tarot. So this was by far the most unconscious pile, right? Like every other pile had at least 3 upright cards. Some of them had way more than that. So if you're drawn to any of the other piles, definitely feel free to check those out. There may be messages for you in all of them. It just, go by your intuition, use your heart as your compass and trust your own authority. But yeah, as far as like this being the only conscious piece of energy out of this whole entire message, it's not surprising to me that it has taken me basically like 6 days to download just this message. Because as I explained, I am receiving it as well, and that means all of this is unconscious to me right now too. So I am personally so excited to reveal all of the unconscious parts, and I've really had to work through like not rushing it, like a sense of why am I doing this in the first place? What is the meaning of this work in the first place? And maybe that's a question you've been asking yourself, for some of you. For all of us in this pile, if this is your message, we are resonating, and I'm again lumping myself right there with you as far as this message has been coming through loud and clear, that inner authority is where it's at, that as far as your path through life, our path, each of us, our individual path through life, you personally are the only one that knows when to turn right or when to turn left or when to charge ahead and when to lay down and rest. Like you personally and your heart is the one who knows the perfect path for you. And that can be slightly disorienting, right? Like what I'm really saying is that there is no book to tell you how to do it. There's no teacher, there's no mentor. There may be things out in the world that can give us bits and pieces to react to, right? Like you read something in a book and your heart just like blooms and blossoms and you cry happy tears. Like, that's not the book telling you what's right. That's your body telling you, I agree wholeheartedly with this, right? Like that's your body recognizing truth for yourself in that moment. And so it's not about what the outer authority is saying is right or true or legal or moral. Like it's not for anybody else to replace your own inner authority. And the 10th house piece of that, I just love this card. I love the colors of it. So I'm going to let you look at it close up while I talk about this 10th house piece of it. Is like our 10th house is very 10th house in astrology and natal charts, if you're familiar. If not, no worries. Like we all have this, so you can kind of strip away the astrology language and just think about your legacy. The 10th house is extremely related to your legacy. And a lot of times I'll hear it referred to or related to your career. And I don't think that's wrong or inaccurate in any way. I just think that the reason, it's not just your job, it's not just your day-to-day work product or effort that you're thinking about when you're in a 10th house space. Your career is really the vehicle. Like think about a little pickup truck with like a little bed in the back, and the pickup truck is just what you use to, fill the pickup bed full of supplies, or, the garbage that you want to haul, or your kayak that you want to take to the lake or whatever. Like the career is just a vehicle for your legacy, right? Like what's in the back of your career? What's loaded up in your career? Your legacy. And where are you going with it? Where are you taking it? And the reason that trusting our own inner authority is so invaluable is, and this is part of like what is consciously coming through to me that I am very much resonating with. And so again, like if this interpretation isn't quite how it lands for you, one, I would love to hear down below, like how's it going for you? But two, if these pieces of authority and trusting your inner way, your own sacred way, if that hasn't been coming to you at all, then I would say probably your message is in a different pile or possibly even another video, you know? So, take that with a grain of salt, use your intuition to tell you, but there's this question with the 10th house of like, what is going to be left behind when you are no longer here? When, our human lives are so short in the grand scheme of life on this planet and the planet itself. And the 10th house is where we take radical ownership and responsibility for the legacy that gets left behind, the impact of the life that we chose to live. And so you think about, if you're trusting an outer authority to, and I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying if you're trusting an outer authority to make your choices, and those choices then lead you down a path where you don't find fulfillment, or you don't ultimately accomplish what it was that you set out to do, and now, you get to the end of your life and you're at the end, or it's over, at that point, like, do you want to look back and look at the decisions that somebody else made that turned out however they turned out? Or do you at least want to be able to go back and say, here's why I did what I did. Here's why I chose here, like, the reason I left that job was because every time I sat in my chair at my desk, my heart felt like it was dying. Like, I felt like my soul couldn't come to work with me at that job. And so that's why I left. Like, you know, maybe that story resonates for you, as far as like, you've already begun to trust this feeling inside of yourself to illuminate the path that you should be taking. And already you've run into the phenomenon where other people do not understand the choices that you're making. Or possibly just like that nobody's following you, like you're marching out into the middle of the wilderness and everybody else is like, good luck, that looks like a suicide mission. And they're like, I think I'll just stay right here in my safe, secure place of the known. And you go ahead, you do whatever you got to do. And inside, your heart is calling you into whatever it's calling you into. And this message, of the message of empowerment that you're ready to hear right now, is that your inner authority knows some shit. Okay? Like, your heart has the map, like a GPS, like this sacred way. Like, your inner feeling, your inner knowing is absolutely your personal turn by turn directions. And again, I just heard like a bunch of honking outside that's like, yes, yes. So hopefully that resonates. We'll call that the energy check on who is the rest of this message for. Feel free to stick around if that all sounds like you and you want to uncover and unearth some of these other unconscious pieces that are ready to add themselves into the mix and connect. And through those connections, I'm definitely getting the sense that the empowerment that you're leveling up into, that we are all leveling up into at this time, whenever you're finding this message, is that you are ready to like lock in and trust your inner authority in a new way. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to doubt. Like, I'm definitely getting the sense, and for me personally, that in the past, like, I would listen to what my intuition was telling me and like, okay, I hear you and I'll do it. But almost the whole time I'm worrying, I'm doubting, I'm questioning, I'm waiting to see, when is this all gonna come together? Because like, holy shit, I'm out on a limb here. And there's been so much worry and fear around it. And I'm definitely getting the sense that like, that is ultimately what's ready to crack open in our empowerment. Pile number 4 is that you can listen to your heart and not worry. You've seen it enough times that when your gut, when your heart, when your intuition, when your skin tells you something, which when you're newer to your intuition and trusting your inner authority, like that can sound so wild to our logic obsessed brains that are a perfect and natural byproduct of the culture that, is so obsessed with logic and reason and all of that. So it makes sense that we would have worried in the past that, maybe I'm just making up this hunch inside my mind and maybe this isn't real. Maybe I'm going to fall flat on my face in the very next moment, like just kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop kind of energy. And that is ultimately what this leveling up of your empowerment is soothing and relieving. So oh my gosh, like let's get into it. Let's get in. Let's start flipping some cards. So let's take your main message, first of all, pile number 4. Okay, so the very first message, the first part, the first half of your main message, you were the only pile to get 2 of these cards. But this is boundaries. Boundaries. And there's also almost like a light half and a dark half here. And then there's this like, almost magical looking, like ethereal line in between the 2 halves of you almost. Almost like your current self and your past self, possibly. Like your conscious self and your unconscious self. We also have you are not alone. You are not alone. And that is like echoing outside. There's like this incessant honking. I really hope you can't hear it. But yeah, boundaries and you are not alone. So that is the main message. How interesting. Stella, no. Okay, so this is something that I'm channeling through here right now because I just had to pause your reading because my dogs heard the dog across the road barking and then they lost it and they had to go outside so that they could stand on our yard and bark at the neighbor dog. And so that to me is friggin' fascinating when you couple these 2 things right here, when you have you are not alone and boundaries. And when I very first saw this card, it made me think spirit guides. I mean, it's kind of like these like, creatures behind her or whatever, hand on her shoulder there. And so that was my initial thought. But then as like this whole thing unfolded out here in the front yard, it's really giving me the sense, okay, of like, you're not alone in your inner authority, right? Like trusting our inner authority is not as easy as like, yep, okay, I'll do that. It's like we're not alone on the planet. Like there are other people who have their own ideas. There are other people who want things that involve our presence. And so there are these other people who have their own authority that, covers the span of their life, although sometimes people do extend their authority onto us. And probably we do too. It's very natural. The energy between people can be a blurry boundary, but that possibly this is part of what it is that's wanting to unfold here as far as like the unconscious energies that are presenting themselves. Acknowledging that you are not alone, maybe in your household, or like I'm getting this visual of like a family who like does everything together. Like, oh, I'm going to go to the grocery store. Here, so and so will go with you. And like it's just you're always with someone else, and that can make it really, really nearly impossible to do what this is describing as far as trusting your inner authority and what feels correct for you. And so possibly there are some, I'm getting the word enhancements to your boundaries. Like very, very clearly, this is not the first boundary work that you've done. That like there are other ways where you've become aware of and practiced boundary setting and, operating within your boundaries. And this next level of acting on your inner authority, your own personal sacred way, is going to include setting boundaries with the other people around you. Yeah. Like, we only give what we want to give. And we give when it feels right to us, when it feels like something that's important for us, then it's totally worthwhile to spend your resources. Capricorn, like, you think about climbing to the top of a mountain, like that takes a tremendous amount of resources. And I'm not really talking about money, although you probably had to get yourself there travel expenses wise, but you know, just even putting one foot in front of the other and climbing to the top of a mountain will physically exhaust your vessel, and you'll have to nourish yourself and make sure that you have the proper food and calories to get you up there. But then also there's probably something of a recovery period afterwards. I don't know. I've never climbed to at the top of a mountain. I've gone on some pretty intense hikes, let me tell you what. And yeah, the recovery can be intense. And so it's like, before you go and just exhaust yourself and sign up for a huge recovery period, make sure you're climbing to the top of a mountain that you actually care about. That your inner authority is pointing at, saying like, hey, why don't we go over there? Because you have this inner calling through your own sacred way to go over there. Not because there's somebody else telling you that, hey, you should do it like this. There's like almost like just like in this card, like there's this separation, this pulling apart of the old us and the new us, where the new us is quite a bit more intentional about where are we spending our energy and what are we spending it on, and is that guided through our own inner authority, or is that being provoked or pulled out of us by something else, some other part of our conditioning that says we have to please others or we have to keep them happy or safe or whatever it is that's motivating us, other than our inner authority, our inner sacred way. Like, basically, what is your heart calling for? And it might be calling for all of those things, right? Like, sometimes, like me making this video, this is a very generous thing to spend my time like making and editing and uploading and like creating this video for other people to enjoy for free. But, that's where again I say, like, this is not just me giving away because I'm a servant of other people. Like, I am receiving through this process. And so there's an exchange happening here, that I am not out anything. If anything, I receive just as much as you all do, especially when, like I was describing, I let the message take the 6 days that it's going to take to come through. Like, I don't have to rush it. I don't have to push it. I can let it happen. And that takes boundaries with the process itself, with myself, not getting in the way of saying like, no, I want to crank these out. I want to make 4 readings a week. That's my goal. I'm going to publish 4 readings a week. I'm going to publish 4 readings a week. And it's like, this one reading took over a week to create. So there's like boundaries with the outer, there's boundaries inside of ourselves. Boundaries are such a fascinating topic and concept. And I think that's why so many people do look for outer authority to tell them what's right. Because when you go inside yourself and you start asking yourself, what do I think is right? What are the lines that I'm not willing to cross? Not because society says they're wrong, but because I don't want to live with myself after I cross that line. I just don't. So then I don't cross that line. Like, often people, or hurting them even, or, taking their power on purpose or taking advantage of other people. Like, these are lines that I personally don't cross, and I don't need anything other than my inner world to tell me that I'm not going to cross those lines. Not because I ever even have and like gone to the other side. Like, I just know that my heart is calling me to stay right here. And that line of hurting other people on purpose is one that I just won't cross. I think it's wrong to intentionally hurt other people. That's a boundary for me. So when I get like really mad and I feel my violence starting to tickle, my revenge plotting fantasies get going, it's like, okay, So now I'm in the space where I'm starting to fantasize about aiming this energy at somebody else, and my boundary says that I don't want to intentionally hurt anyone. And so then what do you do with that energy? You know, like that energy doesn't just go away. And that's where, again, I think the sacred way to use your heart as a compass in time, it does reveal itself. And like basically that's what art is like that energy. You're not gonna harm anybody with it, but how are you gonna get rid of it? How are you gonna move it? And that's where dancing or painting or exercise or talking or expressing, or there's so many different ways that you can move the energy that does respect your boundaries. And so figuring out these inner boundaries as far as like what feels right to you. You be the authority as far as what's right and what's not right. And you're not making that call for anybody who's not you, right? Like everybody and their mom has their own inner authority. Everyone. From the day we're born. And if you think I'm wrong, like when a baby doesn't have what it needs, it cries. You know, it uses the resources at its disposal to get itself what it thinks it needs. That's exercising inner authority. That's demanding that I need this thing because my inner compass is telling me like, hey, we're needing some food in here. You know, like whatever it is that's making the baby cry. I don't like this, so let me ask for something different. So there is the autonomy of the individual, the sovereignty of the individual that is paramount. And I'm definitely getting the sense that, like, we receiving this message, anybody watching this pile, and still very much resonating here, it's like we are the ones that are here to be the example of what does it look like to practice pure individual sovereignty. And I see that as being twofold. Number one, you grant it to yourself, meaning, I mean, reject is a strong word maybe, but that you do not allow, you have a boundary around being influenced by outer authority. Like outer authority coming into your system ruffles something inside of you that lets you know this isn't right. And I'm thinking about like, and this all kind of came together this morning as I was watching these various YouTubers that I really enjoy watching typically. And then this morning, I could not get into anything any of them were saying because they kept saying things like, you should, and you are, and they're like telling me who I am. And I'm like, you don't know. And I'm like getting so mad. And finally, like it just clicked. Like, okay, I'm ready to get whatever this message of empowerment is. Like, I'm ready to hear it. What is it? And it is that nobody else knows. And so the first piece is granting that to yourself. Nobody else knows. Only you know, right? And sometimes we're confused. Sometimes we don't yet understand or we don't yet have clarity. And so that can even be the most tempting time to want to look outside ourselves to like, get some clarity around things. But really, like, number two is that we don't presume to hold anybody else's authority. That, we actively empower every single other person that we interact with by granting them their own authority, by not assuming that we know what's right for them, by asking them questions about, well, what do you think? How does that feel for you? What does it make you feel like when you think about doing it like that? Like basically to never give advice to another person ever again is what I'm getting out of all of this, is because, we know what's right for us. And based on my own lived experience, I believe that wholeheartedly. And yet I can still find myself in the situation where I am giving my advice to another person. And so one of the boundaries actually that I've come up with, interesting to connect it all like this, one of the boundaries that I've come up with myself is not to force myself to stop giving advice, because I've found that that's basically impossible. You like sleepwalk into giving people advice if you're anything like me. And it comes from a pure place. It really does. I just want to help. But that's why I created the boundary the way I did, so that it can support me in my unconsciousness that like I really can't help myself, and that as I wake up inside giving someone else advice, I take that, the boundary is that I treat that advice like a boomerang. And I threw it at them, and I just sit there and wait for it to like come back around to me, as far as how am I doing this? How am I the one who needs to hear this advice right now? And so again, like anytime I try to like anytime I'm not trying, but like anytime my authority starts to spill over onto somebody else, I do allow that boomerang to come back, and I take my focus back off of them and I put it back inside my own authority and say, how would I implement this advice in my life right now? What does that bring up in me? How does that make me feel? So like going back to empowering myself. Let's take a look at this other card. Oh my God. Okay, so we have the full moon in Gemini. The answers you need are coming. And this is a timeless reading. So I'm going to say two things. Number one, at the time of recording this, it's May 27th, 2023, and the Gemini full moon, I believe, is on June 17th, 2023. So the next full moon that's coming is the Gemini full moon. So if you're watching this before that, like definitely the Gemini full moon is significant. And we're going to talk some more about Gemini energy because that's really relevant here to kind of like inner downloads of your own answer. But on the timeless reading side of things, interpret this as the next full moon is bringing you the answers that you need. And Gemini energy is ruled by Mercury, the planet Mercury, and both are associated as the messenger of the gods. And this is very much the idea, and now I'm very much going back to interpreting this as spirit guides, right? Like, you're not alone in the world. There are physical beings that surround you in the 3D, but when you turn inward and you seek the connection between your heart and your soul and your physical vessel and lining all of those up to take step by step by step on that path, the sacred way. As you're doing that, as you do inevitably take in things from the outside world, like I was describing this morning with the videos I was watching, you will bring things into yourself that allow you to receive the answer. And that process, like I want to talk about questions and answers, it's very Gemini. Having a question, like another way to think about that is that there's a piece of the unknown. A question is almost like a bite-sized piece typically, because a question, it kind of implies that there is an answer, but it's the unknown. And again, I go back to how uncomfortable that is for most human beings, because typically the unknown registers as unsafe in our physical vessel. And so again, that can be where the compulsion to look outside might come from. It makes total sense. It's in our biology that we want to make ourselves feel safe. And coming into the rhythm of this trust that we were talking about at the beginning of, not even just following your inner authority, but really trusting your inner authority, meaning that while you're waiting to see how it's going to work out and unfold, you're really not worrying. And this feels like an even, just another confirmation of that, as far as like, you can trust that the answers that you need are coming in perfect timing. They are being revealed to you in the moment that it will serve you to have them. Notice it's not the answers you want are coming. It's the answers you need. And this is loud and clear, like this is always happening, right? Like it's not just the Gemini full moon and like that's our one download that we're ever going to get. Like, no, it's your Gemini energy that you possess all day, every day for your entire life that is downloading the exact answer that you need in the exact timing that you need it. It is already happening. I love that. Let's see what this one is. So we have pink Chasseldony. Chasseldony? I really don't know how to say that. Suppose I could look it up, but I really don't want to. My inner authority is telling me that's not necessary. So it represents creativity, self-expression, life is your canvas. How interesting. So, like, again, self-expression, like, what do you want? What do you feel? What's going on inside of you? What's your inner answer that you're downloading? Like, and again, like, that can be a bit of a lonely path. You know, at times. There are other times when, you know, you're lost in your creativity and you're like, you know, kind of losing track of time and the world slips away just because you're bringing through like such good feeling energy that there's really no better path than this one right here. And yet, kind of in between the creativity, I would say during the rest cycle, it can be a bit lonely. And part of this path and part of trusting our inner authority and part of what's like really coming into focus out of our unconscious is that the in-between periods are a critical part of the process. Like this creativity that sounds really great, like losing yourself and you're in the flow and all that sounds so wonderful. And it's only possible to enter into that space because you've taken really good care of yourself. You're well rested, your tummy isn't growling, your phone's not buzzing at you, you know, nobody's tapping you on the shoulder. You've carved out some time and space just for you to allow this to flow through. And that's where this creative energy can be so delicious. I'm getting very much like that the like creativity and the answers coming on the full moon, the next full moon, that's very much part of the process of how that's all going to come through. Let's see what this other side has for us. So we have aquamarine and white lily with go with the flow, divine mother, Shekinah flow, I don't know what that is, and detach. How interesting. So that message of detachment honestly goes along really well with several things that we've been talking about, detaching from the worry around, you know, kind of having a boundary around not worrying about what your heart is telling you is right. If it's telling you it's right, then detach from any worries around, oh gosh, but what if that brings a consequence? Well, what's coming through is like, I can guarantee you that that consequence that it might bring, you know, this is life. We're not guaranteed a feathered nest or a gentle path, but we are guaranteed the path of least resistance. And if your heart leads you in a certain direction and that leads to a particular consequence, you can know for a fact that that consequence is easier for you to deal with than if you hadn't listened to your heart and you played it safe. Playing it safe doesn't guarantee you that there won't be consequences, right? So like if you play it safe, that consequence is worse every single time than if you listen to your heart and maybe that does risk a particular consequence. It will always be easier to deal with than I ignored myself, I didn't let myself follow my heart, and now here's this consequence anyway. I'm going to link this Jim Carrey video that I watched yesterday down in the comments. I know now that that was part of bringing this through. But in there he says you can fail at something that you hate. Right? Like, yeah, if you go for what you love, people may not understand and it might fail, quote unquote. What does that even mean? Right? You probably learned a lot. And at that point, was it really a failure? I digress. But yes, you can fail at something you love. You can also fail at something you despise. And that's what I mean by, you know, going after what you want, what your heart desires, and maybe having some kind of consequence. Maybe that's a little bit rough, but it is always going to be easier. So go with the flow, detach, listen to your heart. Do not worry about any of the consequences. You put your heart in the right place and then worry about no consequences. because you know that even when they come, this is the easiest version of this consequence that I was ever going to manifest. Let's see what this one has. The Great Mystery. I love that. I reveal the wisdom keys of your destiny. It very much reminds me of this card, which is slightly in conjunction to it. The answers you need are coming, right? Like the Great Mystery is not meant to, you can't flip to the back of the book and like read how it ends. Like that's just not how life works. So part of the joy, part of the creative joy of the process is the waiting, is the unknown, is the rest cycle between the creative outlets, the creative outflows, right? So like for example, these last 6 days I've been waiting. It's been a mystery to see like how is this message going to unfold. And what I want to say is like, yes, you can try to rush forward. You can try to like, I mean, I had the cards pulled. I could have easily like opened all of the cards and see what was in there, and I didn't, because there's a timing piece to like, even if, okay, so this comes back here, like the answers you need are coming. And the reason you're not getting them right now is because you wouldn't even hear them. Like, it took me 6 days of the Jim Carrey video and this other thing and this other thing. And then this morning, like 3 different of my favorite YouTubers annoying the fuck out of me because they're telling me who I am. And like all of that had to happen to be able to have the creative outflow that I'm doing right now. And I'm sure that you've seen that in your own process as well. It's like there's a timing. I heard this story on an Abraham Hicks video one time where Esther was chatting with this artist. She was in her 70s, and Esther was looking at this painting that she had done and was admiring it and telling her how beautiful it was. And then she asked her, how long did it take you to paint that? And she said 73 years. 73 years it took me to paint that painting. Because it's a culmination of everything that you've become. It's the leading edge creation of who you now are. And I can only imagine, like 20 more days before the full moon at the time of this, for me recording this and receiving this for myself. Like, who am I going to be 20 days from now when I actually hear and receive the answers that I need, whatever those are at that time? The growth and the evolution of who we are puts us in different ability and capacity to be able to receive the messages that we then channel into the creative output, whatever it is that we're making for the world. Whatever it is that is going to be left behind as part of our legacy once we are no longer here. 10th house. This is why we follow our inner authority, because our life's work will be left behind no matter what it is. And we don't get to stick around and defend what we did. It's got to speak for itself. It will. It always does speak for itself. And so that's why, you don't get to know at the end, like, okay, did I do the right thing or whatever? You're gone. You're like over it at that point. It's like the best we can do to create the best possible life's work so that it is the best that it can be at the very end of that, is to trust our own inner authority step by step by step all along the way. And that is really the most confidence we're ever going to have that we're doing life right. Is that, does your heart feel in it? Does your heart support the choice that you're making? Does your heart have reservations? Just the reasoning, do you have a lot of logic as far as why you're making the choice you're making? And the only reason I ask that is like, if it's a really logical choice, not that it can't also be a heartfelt choice, but that could be a potential way of bypassing. But what does your heart think? Well, I don't know what my heart thinks. Logic says this, that. Well, I don't care what the logic says. Like, what does your heart think? And sometimes it can take days or weeks or months for your heart to process through what does it think. And so those rest cycles that happen while you're getting clear in your inner authority, that's where I go back to there can be a lot of waiting. There can be a lot of getting clear, and that's what's going on. And so those are the moments to practice this trust and the boundaries with yourself of choosing not to worry, right? We can't force the worry to stop, but every time it pops up, like, oh gosh, what is this person going to think? Or what if this thing happens? Or, like you catch yourself starting to, try to control the path and make sure that it's all going to be okay. Like, that's not our job. That's not our job. Our job is to listen to our heart and do what it's asking us to do. And that path, it doesn't offer a whole lot of guarantees, right? Like, it's pretty much without guarantee. And that's where I say, you have to weigh that for yourself as far as like, is the fear of unknown, is that the harder part, right? Like to just put your trust in your heart and, leave everything else on the outside of the boundary, say like, this is what I'm doing. And because my heart is in it, I'm going to let it unfold however it will. And like, is that the harder part, to trust that the unknown isn't going to bite you in the ass? Or is the harder part to not listen to yourself, to have your inner flow so stunted that your creativity is dribbles at best? Like that's, some of us need creativity like we need oxygen. And so stifling our inner authority, and we feel our heart tapping us on the shoulder saying like, hey, 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 I like this, I want this, and ignoring that, dude, like I feel the worst for people who get to the end of their life and say things like, I should have followed my dreams. I should have tried. I should have faced that fear and took my shot. Like, that has to be so painful because you can't go back. There's no do-overs. And I personally believe in reincarnation, but dude, you're starting at the beginning. That's not a do-over. That's like a whole completely like different mission at that point. Like, we cannot go backwards. Like, we only have the peace of mind of knowing that I am making the best possible choice for myself in this moment, given the resources that I have. That is like the closest that we're going to get to having that peace of mind that says the future is not going to be a danger trap for us. Let's see what we have here. I'm especially curious about this one. Ah, beautiful. What a confirmation to have. We have the star card, number 17, Major Arcana, the star card right here in the middle of go with the flow. Your heart is your compass and your own inner authority. What do those like congeal into? Your wishes coming true. Chasing your dreams and getting them. Do you know a surefire way for our dreams not to come true is to not even try? If you try, there now is this possibility that is incredibly exciting, incredibly energizing, to me at least. The possibility of, because I'm chasing my dreams, I might just get them. I could actually get them. And this feels like a huge confirmation that that's exactly what's going to happen. Like, it almost brings up this like fear of success. Like, worst case scenario, you chase your dreams and they come true. Yeah. That might be something to think about, because like all of this is unconscious energy that is adding itself to it. Is like, could it be possible, and this is a general reading, so maybe this is true for some of us and less for others, but could it be possible that you are scared of your inner authority because what if it does put you on the path to all of your dreams coming true? Is there any latent fear of success or fear of being seen or fear of, public scrutiny on you? Is there any underlying fear that it's not that you're worried that your heart is leading you astray. It's maybe that you're worried that it's leading you right into the middle of an auditorium full of thousands of people that are going to be all eyes on you because they want to be. So, what is it that is actually under the root of your relationship with your inner authority? So, this feels like an invitation to kind of sink down into that question, each of us for ourselves. We also have the Page of Pentacles. And I absolutely love that, like kind of just right here, as far as we have the go with the flow and the detachment, the Star card, our sacred way, and then the Page of Pentacles, which Pentacles are an earth element, and the page represents something new that you're trying, that you're practicing. And I love that as far as like, our human brain, it's impossible to stop thinking. And so as you're waiting, as you're allowing, the sacred way, the sacred timing to unfold itself, what is it that you're actually doing? And the Page of Pentacles is like, practice your craft. Like what I'm doing right now is a good example of, this is just for fun. This is just to practice my divination skills, give myself a set of cards and see if I can bring some messages through me into something that feels good in my heart, something that hopefully is helping you to feel good in your heart. But you just practice, right? Like, we're not trying to make our dreams come true, they just will. And we don't really have to even think about that. We really, like, this conscious part, there's a reason that that was what came through first and has been working in your consciousness the longest, is because really all we have to do is get clear inside of ourselves in any moment to know, okay, do you go right or do you go left? Today, do I feel like maybe getting caught up on a project, or do I feel like taking a walk? Do I feel like making a video? Do I feel like playing with some cards? Do I feel like, what am I going to practice today? Which part of my work am I going to practice today? And, I'm hearing the quote, luck is actually when preparation meets opportunity. And that this right here, your inner authority, that inner GPS system, the turn by turn directions, are fully taking care of the opportunity coming to you, which is to say, more you being in the right place at the time when the opportunity is there. Right place, right time. Like, the opportunity doesn't really come to you, it more like you cross paths with the opportunity, and that is a matter of being in the right place at the right time, which is what your inner authority gets you. And so when luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So the opportunity is taken care of. We don't need to worry about that, right? The dreams are just going to come true. But preparation is our job. That's part of our work. That's part of your legacy. It's like, people with really powerful legacies, they usually don't get good at stuff overnight. They really chip away at it, and they practice and they practice and they practice, and they learn and get better and all of that. So that development, that self-development, the practicing the different components and elements of what it is that really lights you up or gets your creative juices flowing, that is like kind of the day by day focus for that your human brain can, really grab a hold of, as far as like, I'm practicing my skills. Like, I write every single day. I do this when it comes through, in whatever time it wants to. I make videos as that's fun. I research astrology as that's fun. Like, it just kind of all gets brought together then, as far as like, okay, so now here's an opportunity where you'll need this, 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 and you have to take it right now or it's not yours. And in that opportunity presenting itself, that is not the time to go and be like, oh, okay, so I need to go practice my divination skills and I need to get really good at, video editing or whatever. And like, no, like, you need to already have those things. And so there's a lot of practice that we're in at this stage of the game, as far as like letting, kind of practicing our inner authority, even by letting it guide us to what is the practice for today. You know, that might be a really helpful question. What is the practice that I'm going to do for today? And to let your focus rest there, and otherwise just go with the flow of whatever practice it is today, whatever that leads to tomorrow, like whatever, you know, tools that's putting in my toolbox, so that then I'm ready when an opportunity presents itself, to just trust what is the practice for today and let it be that simple. Let's see what this one is with the great mystery. The answers you need are coming. Oh, dude. Wow. Okay, so death, the death card, death and rebirth. And if you're at all familiar, even a little bit with the tarot, you know that that doesn't mean physical death. It means a transformation of some kind, and that that is extremely fitting with the great mystery and the answers you need are coming. And so really, I'm getting the sense that within the next 3 or 4 weeks, you have a massive transformation that is part of these dreams coming true. It's part of, you know, you don't need to do anything special for it. It is just going to be happening. And that there's illumination, there's like knowledge and wisdom that is part of the new version of you, the new form that you're being reborn into, that is clarifying a part of the great mystery. It's part of the answers that you need in order to do your work on this planet and leave the legacy that you meant to. There is a transformation coming, and that I wouldn't be surprised at all about that, right? Because here we are receiving this powerful message of empowerment that we are ready to hear, and that this message has time to sink in before that next full moon. And again, the leading edge and all the things that come to us to help us get clear inside of ourselves and what is your heart pointing at. Oh, that's so exciting. That's so exciting. Okay, so we have the Nine of Pentacles and the World. So the Nine of Pentacles is another wish fulfillment card, and the World is a completion card. So death, another wish fulfillment, and completion. So there is absolutely something coming to an end. There is something new, like, right? Like every end is a new beginning of some sort. And I'm getting the sense that like this is a choice. This is a boundary. This is a line that you draw in the sand and you say enough. And specifically, I'm seeing it related to worry, but it could absolutely be different for every single person who's watching this. You listen to your heart. You know, you know what's in there. You know what your wishes are. And you have two, repeat it, two wish fulfillment cards and energy tied in with the next full moon. So pile number 4, this is what I see for the message of empowerment that you are ready to hear at this time. It has been my absolute pleasure and privilege to receive this message on behalf of us all. I know that it has nourished and nurtured the seeds within me related to trusting my inner authority, and it has brought even more into the mix that lets me trust that inner authority 1% more, 1% more, 1% more. I would love to hear from you down below how this message is landing within you. What does it bring up in your heart space? I would absolutely adore getting to hear if that feels good to you to share. If you've liked your message, please give it a thumbs up down below, a thumbs up down there, and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in messages like this. There may also be, I'm hearing it again, there may also be a message for you in one of these other piles, so don't forget to check those out. There are also songs tied in with each of these messages that are linked in the timestamps. You probably saw it if you use the timestamps. So don't forget to check those out. Those are a part of my divination as far as kind of like another oracle. The lyrics most likely have a message for you, especially if you're drawn to check it out. So those are there for you. It has been my pleasure to bring you all of this gift, to put all of this out into the world, to add it to my legacy of what will be behind when I'm no longer here. It's my joy to connect with you in this space. Until next time, I hope you take care and honor the beautiful being that you are, and so will I.